Chapter 648. So sinister. Tendo knew that those people from the Xuanhuan Great World were most likely finished. Inside the prison pagoda, there were 6 more people on the first floor, led by a black-robed old man. There was a dark mark between the black-robed old man's eyebrows. When he appeared in the pagoda, the black-robed old man frowned. "Be careful." At this time, Yi Xian appeared in front of the black-robed old man. Seeing Yi Xian, the black-robed old man narrowed his eyes. "You are that Yi Xian?" Yi Xian nodded. "That's me." The black-robed old man looked at Yi Xian. "You brought us here." Yi Xian nodded. The black-robed old man pondered for a moment. After a moment, he said, "This is the 5th-dimensional treasure?" Yi Xian smiled. "Yes." The black-robed old man said softly, "You brought us here because you are confident in dealing with us, right?" Yi Xian smiled. "I have a few questions. I wonder if you can answer them?" The black-robed old man nodded. "Speak." Yi Xian said, "How did you people from the Xuanhuan Great World know that I have that treasure?" The black-robed old man said, "Someone calculated it, but," saying this he looked at Yi Xian. "You are a little special. The person who calculated it suffered a severe backlash. Of course, you are not an ordinary person to possess this treasure and have it recognize you as its master. But no matter who you are, even if you are the reincarnation of some almighty being, it will not change our attitude." Yi Xian asked, "Why?" The black-robed old man said, "In this 4th dimension, we fear no one." Fear no one. Yi Xian was silent. Confidence. He could see that the people from the Xuanhuan Great World were very confident. At this time the black-robed old man suddenly said, "Is there anything else?" Yi Xian nodded. "One last question. If you die here, what kind of expert will the Black-Yellow Great World send?" The black-robed elder looked at Yi Xian. "Someone more powerful than us." Yi Xian nodded slightly. "Understood." As he spoke, he pointed upwards. "There's a senior on the 6th floor who wants to invite you for tea." The black-robed old man nodded. "I also want to see what kind of experts this world has." With that, the 6 of them disappeared. Yi Xian stood there quietly. At this time, Xiao Linger appeared in front of Yi Xian. She blinked and said, "There will be something good, right?" Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, a low voice suddenly sounded out from within the tower. "How is this possible?" As the voice faded, 6 corpses suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. 6 completely undamaged corpses. Yi Xian took their storage rings and glanced at them. Gradually, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly. Rich. Truly rich. There were more than 200 million divinity crystals in their storage rings. Among them, there weren't many Dao realm treasures. There were only 6. As for the elixirs, there were more than 50 bottles. He didn't recognize these elixirs, but he knew that they were extremely precious. As for the rest of the miscellaneous items, he calculated that he now had 320 million divinity crystals, 34 Dao realm treasures, more than 70 bottles of elixirs, and some miscellaneous items. Sudden wealth. It was worth mentioning that Xiao Linger had taken away all the treasures of these experts. This made the little girl extremely happy. Of course, Yi Xian was happy as well. He'd struck it rich. At this moment, the Fiend Lord's voice suddenly sounded. "These 6 corpses can be refined into demonic corpses." Demonic corpses? Yi Xian was stunned, and then he said, "What are demonic corpses?" The Fiend Lord said, "They're equivalent to puppets. My devil race has a cultivation technique that can refine living beings into demonic corpses. However, it's rather cruel. Do you want it?" Yi Xian hurriedly said, "Of course. Cruel or not. These people were here to take his life. He naturally wouldn't be merciful or benevolent to his enemies." The Fiend Lord nodded slightly. "You don't have to cultivate. I'll refine them for you." Yi Xian was delighted when he heard this. "Thank you, Senior." He seemed to have thought of something and asked, "Senior, what are their realms of cultivation?" The Fiend Lord replied, "The realm above the Emperor realm." Yi Xian spoke solemnly, "What's the realm above the Emperor realm?" The Fiend Lord replied, "Those below the unknown realm are ants. I should say those below the Tao Breaker realm. Do you understand what I mean?" Yi Xian fell silent. He naturally understood what the Fiend Lord meant. Below the Tao Breaker realm. Yi Xian laughed bitterly. Senior, I'm afraid I still have a long way to go. The Fiend Lord replied, There is indeed a long way to go, but cherish it. The higher you cultivate, the more lost you will often be. Yi Xian asked, Why? The Fiend Lord replied, You don't understand. Yi Xian. A moment later, Yi Xian left the prison pagoda and handed the 6 corpses to the Fiend Lord. A demon corpse. A demon corpse that surpassed the Emperor realm. He had to say that this was another super trump card. Because in the entire chaotic universe, the highest realm was the Emperor realm. Actually, it was a pity that the Fiend Lord still didn't come out. He knew that the other could already come out. But the other didn't come out. Either there was a reason, or there was a plan. However, he couldn't care so much right now. His priority now was to improve his strength and deal with the threat from the Black-Yellow Great Realm. After leaving the prison pagoda, Yi Xian saw Tendo. She hadn't left yet. Tendo looked at Yi Xian. Are they all dead? Yi Xian said indifferently, Does it have anything to do with you? After saying that, he turned and left. He didn't have a good impression of this Tendo. At this moment, Tendo appeared in front of Yi Xian. She looked at Yi Xian and said, Yi Xian, I have to say that I underestimated you. Yi Xian said, What do you want? Tendo said in a low voice, The source in your body is special. It's not suitable for her to follow you. If she follows me, Yi Xian suddenly said, Do you believe that I won't hack you to death? Tendo looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was expressionless. Don't have any ideas about Shaoling. Otherwise, I'll cut off your head. After saying that, he turned and left. The Heavens Tao remained silent. In the past, she wouldn't have been able to bear it. But now, Yi Xian was becoming more and more dangerous. It wasn't just the World Prison Pagoda. There was also Yi Xian. Yi Xian himself was becoming more and more dangerous. After a long time, Tendo turned and left. This time, Yi Xian didn't release the tombstone. Because it couldn't be done more than 3 times. The people from Heaven Origin World weren't stupid. If he continued doing this, it would definitely backfire. Moreover, he didn't want the people from Heaven Origin World to come immediately. However, things didn't go as he wished. He hadn't left for long when the space behind him suddenly trembled violently. Yi Xian turned around. At this moment, the space 3,000 feet in front of him suddenly collapsed. Then, a space crack 3,000 feet long appeared in front of him. At this moment, a figure silently appeared from within the spatial rift. At the same time, a powerful aura suddenly spread out. Rumble! In an instant, the entire starry sky trembled violently. Meanwhile, a white-clothed man appeared in front of Yi Xian and Tendo. The white-clothed man's gaze descended onto Yi Xian. How did they die? Yi Xian pondered deeply for a moment, and then he said, They died of stupidity. Tendo was speechless. P.S. 10 minutes late. It can't be helped. I just got home. I almost ran away. Chapter 649. The man in white looked at Yi Xian. Suddenly, he waved his right hand and a powerful force erupted from his hand like a volcano. Rumble! In an instant, the surrounding space shook violently. Beside him, Tendo retreated rapidly. He did not take the attack head-on. Not far away, Yi Xian's expression suddenly turned sinister. In the next moment, he punched forward. Burial fist. Boom! With Yi Xian as the center, the space within a radius of tens of thousands of feet instantly collapsed when the punch was thrown. Seeing this, the heavenly divinity, who was several thousand zhong away, became extremely solemn. When did Yi Xian become so powerful? In the distance, as Yi Xian punched out, the white-clothed man in front of him instantly retreated rapidly. This retreat was no less than 10,000 feet. At this moment, the white-clothed man's eyes were filled with astonishment and seriousness. He looked at Yi Xian and said, Your fist technique is so powerful. Yi Xian was expressionless. He clenched his right hand slowly and a powerful force condensed again. The man in white slowly opened his right hand. In the next moment, the space around Yi Xian trembled violently. At this moment, Yi Xian stomped his right foot lightly. Boom! The surrounding space returned to normal. The man in white frowned slightly. You! Before he could finish speaking, Yi Xian had already rushed in front of him. Then, a huge fist with a sound of air exploding fiercely slammed toward his face. The man in white did not dodge. Instead, he raised his hand and punched toward Yi Xian's fist. Rumble! Two powerful forces suddenly exploded. The surrounding space trembled violently. Yi Xian had already retreated to his original position. But in the next moment, he rushed toward the man in white again. Fight! Ever since he had improved, he had never fought with anyone. Therefore, he did not have a clear idea of his combat strength. Now he needed to fight. But this time, he did not use his sword. Instead, he used his fist. Right now, his physical body had been sealed as an emperor. In addition to the burial fist, his physical strength alone was enough to suppress the white-robed man. In the starry sky, a series of explosions rang out continuously. Not far away, Tendo became more and more shocked as she watched, because she knew that Yi Xian was a swordsman, but at this moment, this Yi Xian actually relied on his own physical body and that unknown fist technique to forcibly suppress the man in white. After all, the man in white was a sole emperor. At this moment, not too far away, boom! An explosion suddenly resounded like a clap of thunder, and then Yi Xian returned to his original position. Not far away, a spear appeared in the hands of the white-clothed man. The white-clothed man looked coldly at Yi Xian. We underestimated you. You. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Boom! The space around the white-clothed man and Yi Xian collapsed in an instant. A powerful force crushed toward the white-clothed man like a torrential storm. Under Yi Xian's powerful fist momentum, the white-clothed man retreated again and again, unable to withstand it. Just like that, after retreating a few thousand zhang, a sword suddenly appeared in Yi Xian's hand. Executing Heaven's Sword. The sudden appearance of the sword caused the white-clothed man's expression to change drastically. When he regained his senses, Yi Xian's sword had already slashed down. The white-clothed man reflexively raised his spear to block. Boom! The spear instantly shattered. At this time, Yi Xian was already standing behind the white-clothed man. Sword retracted. Yi Xian waved his right hand, and the white-clothed man's storage ring instantly flew into his hand. Then, he turned around and left. Behind him, the white-clothed man's physical body gradually turned illusory like smoke. In the distance, Tendo's expression was solemn. A moment later, Yi Xian disappeared into the distant horizon. Where he stood, the white-clothed man had completely disappeared. Tendo was silent for a long time. Then he turned around and left. However, the crack in the space not far away did not disappear. Order City. Yi Xian came to the hall where Xueqi lived. Inside the hall, there were only 3 people. Yi Xian, Xueqi, and Shangguan Xian'er. Xueqi said softly, "Come out." As soon as he finished speaking, 23 people appeared behind Yi Xian without a sound. 23 people, all dressed in black, with long sabers hanging on their waists. Hidden guards. These 23 people were the most elite assassins of God Nation. Usually, they were also responsible for Xueqi's safety. Xueqi looked at Yi Xian. From now on, they will listen to your orders. Yi Xian looked at the 23 people, and his heart was filled with emotions. He had to admit that these 23 people were really strong. In the current God Martial City, if he, and Lanxiu, and Mo were excluded, these 23 people could probably flatten the entire God Martial City. Xueqi got up and walked in front of Yi Xian. You killed the 7 of them? Yi Xian nodded his head. Shangguan Xian'er looked at Yi Xian and didn't say a word. Xueqi nodded her head. This time, they will send even stronger people. Yi Xian smiled. I know. Xueqi looked at Yi Xian. I have an idea. Yi Xian said. Speak. Xueqi said, take the initiative to attack. Shangguan Xian'er looked at Xueqi in shock. Yi Xian said solemnly, attack Xianhuang Great World? Xueqi shook her head. She walked to the entrance of the hall and looked into the distance. The battle can't be in the chaotic universe. If it is, this world won't be able to take it. A battle of that level will damage this universe, so we have to place the battle elsewhere. Yi Xian asked solemnly. Where? Xueqi said. They are on the way. We will fight them in the space tunnel. Yi Xian thought about it and said, that is possible. Xueqi turned around and looked at Yi Xian. Shenhuang Great World is too far from us and they won't easily send an army over. So, they will definitely send stronger experts. They have lost so many people before and will definitely remember that. So, the people who come this time won't be ordinary. Yi Xian said solemnly, how many people are you prepared to bring? Xueqi looked at Yi Xian. Just you and me. Yi Xian was stunned. Shangguan Xian, was stunned too. 2 people? Xueqi looked at Yi Xian. This time we don't need more people, we just need quality. If they don't attack, then they will be wiped out. Yi Xian was silent. Xueqi asked, is there a problem? Yi Xian said, I want to bring someone. Xueqi asked, who? Yi Xian smiled, I am from Shenwu City. Xueqi said, that girl called in Lanxiu? Yi Xian nodded his head. Xueqi thought about it and said, no. Yi Xian didn't understand. Why? Xueqi said, she is strong enough but I want. After saying that she looked towards Yi Xian. Insta-kill. Insta-kill. Yi Xian understood what Xueqi meant. Xueqi wanted someone from Shenhuang Great World to be able to insta-kill them. Yi Xian said solemnly, if they are above Emperor Realm, I won't be able to insta-kill them. Xueqi looked at Yi Xian. You can. You can. This time we can't hold back at all. As she spoke, she turned around and walked back to her original position before she said, the Profoundness world has committed many evil deeds, so they definitely have many enemies. This time, if we annihilate them with an absolute advantage, then those who have enmity with them will take the initiative to come to us. Aura! Aura! Yi Xian thought about it and then nodded his head. Okay. He didn't want to sit still and wait for death. He had to strike first. 7 nodded. Let's go. Yi Xian was shocked. Now? 7 looked at Yi Xian. Their people are definitely on the way, so naturally we have to go now. Yi Xian nodded his head. Okay. Let's do it. At that moment, Shangguan Xian suddenly said, Your Majesty, do you want them to go with you? 7 shook her head. Let them stay here. Shangguan Xian walked in front of 7 and bowed. Your Majesty, forgive me for saying too much, but your safety concerns the entire God country. If anything happens to you, the entire chaotic universe will instantly fall apart. 7 shook her head. I will be fine. Shangguan Xian looked at 7 and she said softly, if we can't beat them we can run. Yi Xian, Shangguan Xian A moment later, Yi Xian and 7 left the Order City. In the Order City, Shangguan Xian looked up at the sky, her eyes filled with worry. 7 was too confident. Of course, she had the strength to be confident. However, many people would fail because of their own confidence. At that moment, a voice came from the side. Don't worry. Shangguan Xian turned her head and saw that it was Yan Dao. Yan Dao said softly, if she wants to retreat, besides the legendary unknown realm expert, no one can kill her. Shangguan Xian suddenly asked, Your Majesty, why are you bringing City Lord Yi? In terms of strength, although City Lord Yi is strong, he shouldn't be the best candidate. Yan Dao was silent for a moment and then said, he is the best candidate. Shangguan Xian didn't understand and asked, why? Yan Dao said, Your Majesty's personality is too cold and he is too shameless. The two of them can make up for each other. Shangguan Xian, In the depths of the distant starry sky, Yi Xian and 7 arrived in front of the spatial crack again. In the depths of the spatial crack was a spatial passageway. A spatial passageway that led to the black-yellow great world. 7 looked at Yi Xian and Yi Xian smiled and said, Let's go. With that, the two of them entered the spatial passageway. As soon as the two of them disappeared, Tendo appeared where the two of them had been. Watching the two of them disappear, Tendo didn't speak for a long time. At that moment, a voice sounded in Tendo's ear, If they don't return, this chaotic universe will return to your hands. Tendo slowly closed his eyes. If they don't return, there will be no more chaotic universe. The voice was silent. Tendo looked at the spatial crack and said softly, They should be able to return alive, right? In the spatial passageway, Yi Xian and 7 stood side by side. 7 was a head lower than Yi Xian, and they both held a sword in their hands. Because of the Tao of space, the spatial passageway around the two of them was very stable. Yi Xian suddenly said, 7, if we don't return. 7 looked into the distance and said softly, then we won't return. Chapter 650. Within the space tunnel, Yi Xian and 7 rode on the sword. On the sword, 7's eyes were closed like she was resting. Half a day had passed since the two of them left the chaotic universe. During this time, they didn't see a single person from Xuanhuang Great World. Yi Xian raised his head and looked towards the end of the tunnel. He knew that the expert who came this time would definitely be stronger than those who came before. Just at that moment, 7 suddenly said, "Don't worry." Yi Xian looked at 7 and smiled. "I am not worried. I just don't know when I will be able to end the cause and effect on me." Cause and effect. In the past, he didn't believe in such things, but now he did. The World Prison Tower and his own identity. These were all mysteries until now. At this moment, 7 suddenly said, "Your sword is rejecting me." Yi Xian looked at the executing heaven sword in his hand. "It is rejecting you?" 7 nodded. Yi Xian didn't understand. "Why?" 7 shook her head. "I don't know." Yi Xian looked at executing heaven's sword, but it didn't reply. At that moment, 7 said, "My sword and your sword should know each other." Yi Xian reached out with his right hand and 7's sword flew into it. Yi Xian sized up the sword in his hand and said softly, "You know executing heaven?" The sword shook slightly. Yi Xian looked at executing heaven's sword and the latter directly returned to the prison tower. "Yi Xian," at the side, 7 said softly, "your sword seems a little dispirited." Yi Xian looked at 7 and she continued, "Something must have happened to it in the past." Yi Xian nodded and was about to say something. Just at that moment, the tunnel shook. Shortly after, dozens of people appeared in front of 7 and Yi Xian. When he saw them, Yi Xian was stunned. That was because they were all so young. When they saw Yi Xian and 7, they were stunned too. At that moment, the leading teen asked, "You all came from the chaotic universe?" Yi Xian nodded. The expressions of the young man and the others became a little strange. At that moment, a black-robed teen snickered. "I heard that the chaotic universe is very rich. Is that true?" Yi Xian looked at the black-robed teen. "It's so." The black-robed teen laughed. How can we do that? We've spent more than a month to get here, and we've paid a huge price. If it's just so, wouldn't we lose everything?" Yi Xian was a little frightened as he said, You are here to rob us?" The black-robed teen laughed. "You all just now?" Yi Xian said in a deep voice. "How could you do that?" Yi Xian said, "You all, chaotic universe." Nearby, the black-robed youth and the others began to laugh loudly. The black-robed youth laughed loudly. "Look, everyone. The people of the Chaosverse are so naive." Heaven Yi said, "Yi Yi, Yi. Yi Yi. Yi Yi." Yi Xian said seriously, "How could I do such a thing? I'm a righteous person." 7 looked at Yi Xian. "Ha ha." Not far away, the black-robed teen laughed. "A righteous person? What a righteous person." A moment later, he appeared in front of Yi Xian. He sized Yi Xian up. "You don't seem to have any treasures. How about this? Follow us to the chaotic universe and show us the way. Tell us where the richest things are. What do you think?" Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then said, "What's in it for me?" The black-robed teen blinked. "In it, I'll leave you with a dog." Chi! At that moment, a sword suddenly pierced through the black-robed teen's throat. Not far away, the youth and the others were stunned. The person who had attacked was Yi Xian. Yi Xian gazed at the black-clothed teen. "The wind was quite strong just now, so I didn't hear you clearly. Can you repeat that?" The black-clothed teen gazed at Yi Xian with terror. At this moment, even his soul couldn't escape. Right at this moment, the young man in luxurious robes suddenly said, "Who exactly are all of you?" Yi Xian gazed at the youth and was about to speak when 7 suddenly vanished. At the instant that 7 vanished, the expressions of the youth and the others changed drastically. They were just about to attack when a wave of light enveloped them. A few breaths of time later, 7 returned to where he stood just now, and there was a pile of corpses not too far away from him. "Wait, there's one more person alive, and it's the man who led the group." At this moment, The man's countenance was pale as a sheet, and his body was trembling. Meanwhile, 7 suddenly said, "Is there anyone else besides all of you?" The man gazed at 7. "Who exactly are you?" 7's face was expressionless. "You didn't answer the question." As soon as he finished speaking, a ray of light flashed. Hiss! The youth's head flew into the air. Blood sprayed out like a fountain. Yi Xian was speechless. 7 said, "Let's go." Yi Xian suddenly said, "Wait a moment." As he spoke, he put away the spatial rings of everyone here. There was a total of over 60 million divine crystals in their spatial rings, but there were comparatively fewer Dao realm treasures, only 3. Looks like Dao realm treasures aren't common in Sky-Earth world. As if he'd thought of something, Yi Xian gazed at 7. "Do you want it?" 7 shook her head. "I don't lack money." As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian. "Do you lack it a lot?" Yi Xian nodded. He wanted to devour the sword and develop divine martial city, so he didn't lack money at all. 7 spoke softly. "It's useless to me." Yi Xian was puzzled. "Why?" 7 replied, "Because I have everything. What I don't have can't be bought with money." Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "Birth is very important." 7 said, "I asked Nangong to call you to my cultivation room. You can take the sword there." Yi Xian smiled. "I think it's better to be independent." When he spoke up to here, he seemed to have thought of something and looked at 7. "From the beginning until now, I noticed that you treat me differently from the others. Why is that?" 7 thought for a moment and said, "Because you don't respect me as much as they do." Yi Xian was stunned. 7 continued, "I don't have any friends in the God Kingdom because they respect me too much and treat me as their leader." As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian. "You don't respect me, you respect me. Do you understand what I mean?" Yi Xian smiled. "I treat you as a friend." 7 nodded slightly. "Let's go." As soon as she finished speaking, she walked towards the distance. On the spot, Yi Xian kept silent for a moment and then followed. The two of them walked for 4 hours before 7 suddenly said, "I want to cultivate." Yi Xian looked at 7. 7 said, "I have comprehended something and should be able to break through." After saying that, she sat down cross-legged. Yi Xian. 7 sat cross-legged on the spot and quickly entered a meditative state. In just a moment, many sword-intent auras appeared on her body. Yi Xian was speechless. She could break through like that. That was too terrifying. Just at that moment, 7 swords suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. It tapped Yi Xian's stomach. Yi Xian said, "You want to enter?" The sword shook slightly. Yi Xian thought about it and nodded. "Okay." As he said that, he kept the sword into the prison tower. Within the tower, the sword came to the top of the tower. It came in front of one of the swords and shook like it was saying something. The sword at the top of the tower didn't reply. At that moment, Xiao Ling appeared in front of 7's sword. She looked at it. "Do you have a problem?" 7's sword shook. Xiao Ling said, "She is sleeping, don't disturb her." 7's sword was silent for a moment before leaving. Within the tower, Xiao Ling looked at the two swords in front of her. "Do you recognize them?" The sword trembled slightly in response. Xiao Ling didn't understand. "Then why don't you talk to them?" The sword didn't reply. A moment later, Xiao Ling shook her head and said softly, "The world of swords is too complicated." After saying that, she turned around and left. Very quickly, Xiao Ling came to the 7th floor. After this place was opened, she planted many spirit fruits here. However, she wasn't satisfied, so she started to think about the 8th floor. Now, she wasn't just thinking. She had already started to train with the sword. It was obvious that she wanted to use force. Outside the prison tower, Yi Xian wanted to train, but at that moment, the space nearby suddenly shook. Yi Xian knitted his eyebrows. What a perfect timing. P.S. I'm sorry, I was busy these 2 days. There was a conference at the Couplet Association, so I went there. After these 2 days, when I have more manuscripts, I will come and play with you. Chapter 651. Yi Xian stared at something not too far away, his face expressionless. Very quickly, a figure appeared there. Not long after, that figure solidified. It was a woman. She looked to be in her 20s and wore a long blue dress. Her face was covered by a veil, and the veil seemed a bit special, making it impossible to see what she looked like. When the woman saw Yi Xian, she was slightly startled. She sized up Yi Xian. Someone from the Chaos Verse? Yi Xian looked at the woman, not answering. The woman frowned. She was about to speak when she suddenly looked at Xueqi, who was in front of Yi Xian. When she saw Xueqi cultivating, a look of surprise appeared in her eyes. What a powerful aura! As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian. You're cultivators from the Chaos Verse. Yi Xian nodded. Yes. The woman narrowed her eyes. You want to go to the Xianhuang Great World? Yi Xian looked at her. You want to go to the Chaos Verse? The woman nodded. Yes. Yi Xian asked, Are you going to rob someone? The woman looked at Yi Xian. No. Yi Xian was a bit surprised. Then why are you going to the Chaos Verse? The woman said calmly, I'm curious, so I came to play. Can't I? Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, then smiled. Of course. The woman sized up Yi Xian and Xueqi. You're going to the Xianhuang Great World? Yi Xian nodded. I want to take a look. The woman said calmly. Go back. Yi Xian didn't understand. Why? The woman said. Because if you go any further you might die. Yi Xian frowned. Why? The woman said. Up ahead is a spatial stronghold of the Xianhuang Great World. It's guarded by a supreme expert. Yi Xian asked, A spatial stronghold? What does that mean? The woman looked at Yi Xian. Is the Chaos Verse so backward? Yi Xian was speechless. The woman said, The Black-Yellow Great World has built many spatial strongholds throughout the fourth dimension. With these spatial strongholds, the people of the Black-Yellow Great World can quickly reach many places in the fourth dimension. Not far ahead, there is a spatial stronghold of the Black-Yellow Great World. If you go any further, you will alarm the experts stationed there. If you enter the spatial channel of the Black-Yellow Great World without permission, they will kill you. Yi Xian looked at the woman. Aren't you also in this spatial passageway? The woman said calmly. I paid. Yi Xian was speechless. The woman's gaze suddenly landed on Xueqi. She's a swordsman? Yi Xian nodded. The woman spoke in a low voice. She gives me a very dangerous feeling. Yi Xian quickly asked, What about me? The woman looked at Yi Xian. You give me the feeling that you're very dull. Yi Xian was speechless. The woman said, Let's go. With that, she walked in the direction of the chaotic universe. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly said, The chaotic universe is also dangerous. The woman stopped and looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian smiled. It's true. The woman in front of him should be at the Emperor realm. If she went to the chaotic universe to rob others, she would definitely die. Emperor realm experts could not run amok in the chaotic universe. The woman said, Thank you for the reminder. With that, she quickly disappeared into the distance. Yi Xian was silent where he stood. It seemed that more and more people would come to the chaotic universe. Some of these people might just come to see, but most of them would definitely come to reap benefits. Plunder. This was the way of the world. Either you plunder me, or I plunder you. And now, the chaotic universe had undoubtedly become the target of the Black-Yellow Great World. Of course, he, Yi Xian, had become the #1 target of plunder in this universe. Who asked him to have a fifth-dimensional treasure? Just at that moment, Seven suddenly opened her eyes. Yi Xian retracted his thoughts and looked at Seven. Seven stood up and said, Let's go to their stronghold. After saying that, she walked into the distance. Yi Xian followed and asked, What did you break through? Seven said, Some comprehension of the sword path. After saying that, she looked at Yi Xian. Do you want to hear about it? Yi Xian smiled. Okay. Seven said while walking, Swordsman, what we cultivate is the heart, the sword heart. What the heart is, the person is, the sword is. I will ask my heart once a day. Ask your heart. Yi Xian frowned. What do you mean? Seven looked at Yi Xian. It is to reflect on yourself. Your heart won't lie to you. Ask it every day and it goes straight to your heart. Yi Xian kept silent. Straight to the heart. Actually, a person's heart had a good side but there was also a dark side. This dark side was something that many did not dare to face, and they had always been running away from. Avoiding it didn't mean that it didn't exist. On the contrary, the more you avoided it, the darker it would be. 7 said, "No one is perfect. Ask it every day and look into your heart to perfect your sword heart. You can try it too." Yi Xian nodded his head. "Okay." At that moment, 7 and Yi Xian suddenly stopped. 1,000 feet away from them, there was a black hole. Outside the hole was a starry sky. They had reached the end. However, they didn't reach Xianhuang Great World but a stronghold in Xianhuang Great World. After Yi Xian and 7 exited the tunnel, a giant wheel appeared in front of them. The wheel was tens of thousands of feet long and it was completely black. It slowly rotated. 7 looked at the wheel and said softly, "This is the stronghold?" Yi Xian also looked curiously at the round wheel. On the round wheel, there were nearly thousands of space teleportation formations. What level was this treasure? Yi Xian said, "Destroy this stronghold. During this period, the people from Xianhuang Great World shouldn't be able to reach us." 7 sized up the spatial stronghold and said softly, "Don't destroy it, take it away." Yi Xian looked at 7 and 7 said, "Bring it back for the engineering sect to study." Yi Xian. At that moment, a black-robed old man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and 7. The black-robed old man looked at Yi Xian and 7. "You came from the chaotic universe?" Yi Xian nodded his head. The black-robed old man squinted. "Are you here to die?" "You." At that moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Wang. A sword hum flashed across the battlefield. In front of Yi Xian, the black-robed old man's expression changed. He didn't expect Yi Xian to attack right away. Caught off guard, he could only use his arms to block. As Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the black-robed old man's arms were instantly shattered. Boom! The moment the black-robed old man's arms were crushed, his entire body was sent flying. At the instant he was sent flying, his physical body exploded. When only his soul was left, Yi Xian attacked once more. One sword to fix the soul. This sword directly fixed the black-robed old man's soul on the spot. The black-robed old man looked at Yi Xian, his eyes filled with terror. "You!" At this time, Yi Xian waved his right hand and the soul-suppressing sword directly entered the black-robed old man's soul. In an instant, the black-robed old man's soul was completely absorbed. After absorbing the black-robed old man's soul, Soul's excited voice sounded in Yi Xian's mind. "Thank you, young lord." Yi Xian smiled. "Why are you so happy? Are you going to break through again?" Soul said, "If I absorb more experts of this level, I can really break through." Yi Xian smiled. "There will be a chance." Soul said, "Thank you, young lord." Saying that, she turned into a sword light and returned to Yi Xian's body. At this time, several powerful auras suddenly crushed towards 7 and Yi Xian. 7 looked up in the sky. 3 old men appeared quietly, each of them above the Emperor realm. The leading old man looked coldly at Yi Xian and 7. "From the chaotic universe?" 7 suddenly stomped his right foot. Wang. A sword cry resounded through the starry sky. The moment Xueqi drew his sword, Yi Xian suddenly leaped up and punched out. Burial fist. With one punch, the space within a radius of several thousand zhongs suddenly trembled. One of the old men was instantly blown away by Yi Xian's punch. As soon as the old man stopped, 9 swords suddenly appeared above his head. Seeing the 9 swords, the old man's face changed dramatically. The next moment, countless sword lights instantly engulfed the old man. Absolute kill sword array. Facing experts of this level, Yi Xian directly used his full strength. The sword light directly tore apart the space around the old man, and the old man in the center was directly slashed into countless pieces by the absolute death sword formation. The old man's soul wanted to escape, but Yi Xian's soul-suppressing sword had already appeared. In an instant, the old man's soul was completely absorbed by the soul-suppressing sword. Yi Xian put away the old man's spatial ring, and then he looked to his right. There, 7 was walking slowly towards him, and behind her, the corpses of 2 old men were falling slowly. Yi Xian fell silent when he saw this scene. Fighting above realms. 7 was at the Emperor realm, and she was an extraordinary sword god. It could be said that fighting above realms was as easy as eating and drinking to her. Xueqi walked in front of Yi Xian and opened her palm. In her palm, There were 2 storage rings. Yi Xian was stunned, and then he asked, "For me?" 7 nodded. "Don't you like it?" Yi Xian fell silent for a moment, and then he smiled, "Thank you." As soon as he finished speaking, he put the 2 spatial rings away. 7 turned around to look at the enormous disc. "I have to take this." Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. "It's too big." 7 didn't say anything. She took out a palm-sized bag and tossed it into the air. In the next moment, the enormous disc transformed into a ray of black light that entered 7's small bag. Yi Xian was speechless. 7 looked at Yi Xian, a heaven and earth bag, the largest storage device in our chaotic universe, and it can store around 100 more. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. If he robbed this Xueqi, he would definitely become rich. Because the things that Xueqi had on him would definitely be of the highest quality. After putting the disc away, the 2 of them were about to leave. However, right at this moment, the space behind them suddenly split open. 7 frowned, and she turned around and slashed. Bang! With a loud explosion, Xueqi instantly retreated thousands of feet. Chapter 652. Yi Xian turned around. Not far in front of him, there was a shadow standing. The shadow floated in front of him and he couldn't see the body clearly. The shadow suddenly said, "Primal chaos." Just at that moment, a sword hum rang out from behind Yi Xian. In the next moment, a sword light slashed the shadow. Hum! The entire phantom trembled violently, and then it retreated explosively by almost 3 kilometers. At that moment, 7 stood beside Yi Xian. In the distance, the shadow said softly, "What a sharp sword. I never thought that a small chaotic universe would have such a monster like you." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Yi Xian and Xueqi. At that moment, 7 and Yi Xian drew their swords at the same time. Wang wang! 2 sword hum charged into the sky. Boom! As Yi Xian and Xueqi's swords descended, the silhouette instantly retreated over 3 kilometers. At the same time, 2 3 kilometers long spatial rifts appeared in front of Yi Xian and Xueqi. They were forcefully slashed open by the sword. At the same time, the shadow became more and more illusory. It was obvious that it wasn't the main body. Yi Xian said, "Let's go." 7 nodded. The 2 of them turned around and left. When the 2 of them left, the shadow completely disappeared. But behind Yi Xian and 7, a teleportation formation suddenly appeared. In the next moment, it started to shake violently. Seeing this, 7 frowned. Someone is forcefully breaking open space. Forcefully breaking open space. Yi Xian looked at the teleportation formation. "We should be there soon." 7 nodded. "Then let's wait." Yi Xian nodded. "Okay." The 2 of them stood not far from the teleportation formation. Not long later, a black-clothed middle-aged man appeared on the teleportation formation. After the black-clothed man appeared, his gaze shot towards Yi Xian and Xueqi like a sharp arrow. Just as he was about to speak, Xueqi and Yi Xian suddenly disappeared, and 2 beams of sword light shot towards him. The black-robed man narrowed his eyes and a cold light flickered in them. "How dare you!" As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and punched out. Rumble! A powerful force poured out from his fist like a flood. At this moment, 2 sword lights arrived. Rumble! The space around him cracked, and the black-robed man retreated rapidly, while countless sword lights slashed around him. Within the sword light, a shocked voice suddenly rang out. "You!" Soon, the voice stopped abruptly. At that moment, the sword light disappeared. 7 and Yi Xian turned around and left. Behind them, the black-clothed man had already disappeared. On the way, Yi Xian asked, "Are we going back?" Xueqi shook his head. "We can't go back. We've already alerted them. If they aren't stupid, they won't let ordinary experts come over." Yi Xian said, "Then shall we continue forward?" 7 nodded. "All right." Soon, the 2 of them disappeared not far away. Continue forward. Yi Xian didn't plan to go back either because if he went back now, he would just be sitting ducks. Compared to sitting ducks, he preferred to take the initiative to attack. The 2 of them rode their swords towards the depths of the starry sky. On the way, Yi Xian started to check his trophies. By then, he had 430 million divine crystals, 40 Dao realm treasures, 80 bottles of all kinds of super elixirs, and a lot of miscellaneous items. Dao realm treasures. One had to say that Yi Xian was very excited at this moment. Because he had too much wealth right now. He could not feel smug. It could be said that this wealth could allow him to not worry about swords for a period of time. Apart from that, the Demon Lord had refined 6 demon corpses for him. The combat strength of these 6 demon corpses far exceeded that of Emperor Realm experts. It should be said that their combat strength far exceeded when they were alive. This was because the Demon Lord had personally refined them. At the same time, he had also added devil blood into the 6 demon corpses. This devil blood made the bodies of these demon corpses even more powerful. On the whole, he had both money and manpower now. Thinking about something, Yi Xian looked towards 7. 7, the next time we meet others, don't destroy their bodies with one sword, okay? 7 looked towards Yi Xian. Why? Yi Xian grinned. Their bodies are useful to me. 7 nodded. Okay. Yi Xian smiled. 7, do you really want to unify the 4-dimensional universe? 7 was silent. Yi Xian looked toward 7. 7 said softly, I do want to, but God country's strength doesn't allow it. If I force it, even if I succeed, many people will die. Yi Xian nodded. If a war broke out between the 2 universes, there was no doubt that many people would die. Yi Xian asked, then what are your plans? 7 said, let's deal with Shenhuang Great World first. Deal with Shenhuang Great World. Yi Xian smiled. He had to admit that Xueqi had a kind of confidence, a temperament that gave people the feeling that nothing could be difficult for her. At this moment, 7 looked towards Yi Xian. You want to protect God Martial City, right? Yi Xian nodded his head. 7 nodded her head. Then our goal is the same. Yi Xian said. Will we fail? 7 said, just do it, don't worry about the outcome. Just do it, don't worry about the outcome. Yi Xian kept silent. Right. As long as they tried their best, who knew what the outcome would be like? Just at that moment, 7 suddenly stopped. She raised her head and looked into the distance. In the starry sky there was an ancient city. The ancient city stood in the starry sky like a crouching beast. City? Yi Xian looked towards the city gate. Above it, there were 3 black words. Prairie Flame City. Yi Xian said, let's go take a look? 7 nodded. In just a moment, Yi Xian and 7 came to the city gate. There were no guards there. Yi Xian and 7 walked towards the city gate. Very quickly, the 2 of them arrived. The city was really prosperous and there were many stalls on both sides of the streets. Stalls. Yi Xian was curious. He walked towards a black-robed man on the right. In front of him was a black sword. The sword was totally black and it looked really special. 7's eyes landed on the sword. Yi Xian looked towards the black-robed man. How much is this sword? The black-robed man said, 30 million god crystals. His voice was a little hoarse. 30 million god crystals. Yi Xian sized up the black sword and shook his head. Too expensive. After saying that, he looked towards 7. Let's go. 7 blinked her eyes. Is it expensive? Yi Xian was speechless. This brat obviously didn't bargain at all. That made sense. She had been noble since young, so why would she bargain? Yi Xian looked towards the black-robed man. Cheaper. This black sword was a Dao realm sword. What he lacked the most now was a Dao realm sword. The black-robed man shook his head. This sword was the sword of North Cloud Sword sect leader. Just that alone is already worth 30 million god crystals. North Cloud Sword sect leader? Yi Xian asked. Who? The black-robed man looked towards Yi Xian. You don't know about North Cloud Sword sect? Yi Xian smiled. We came from a small place. The black-robed man didn't explain much. He looked towards Yi Xian. Do you want it? Yi Xian pointed with his finger and a storage ring landed in front of the black-robed man. There were exactly 30 million god crystals in the storage ring. The black-robed man took the storage ring and turned around to leave. Yi Xian waved his right hand and the black sword flew into his hand. It was cold to the touch and a little bone-piercing. Yi Xian passed the sword to Xueqi. Xueqi took the sword and looked at it. At this moment, the black sword suddenly shook violently and turned into a beam of sword light that flew into the distance. Seeing this, Yi Xian and Xueqi were both stunned. The sword wanted to escape?
At that moment 7 suddenly shouted, "Come back!" The moment she said that, the black sword was covered by a streak of sword light. In the next moment, it returned to 7's hand. 7 looked at the sword in her hand.
The black sword shook violently. It still wanted to escape.
7 was expressionless. Someone is summoning it. Yi Xian looked in the direction that the black-robed man left. That person just now.
7 nodded. Yi Xian and 7 suddenly disappeared.
In the next moment, the two of them appeared in a corner of the city. In the corner, there was a black-robed man.
The black-robed man's right hand was facing up and he was chanting something. Seeing Yi Xian and 7 suddenly appear, the black-robed man's expression changed.
You?
Yi Xian looked at the black-robed man. You sold it and then summoned it back. Your plan is really good. The black-robed man didn't say anything. He suddenly stepped forward and 2 streaks of sword light slashed towards Yi Xian and 7. Seeing the black-robed man suddenly attack, Yi Xian was slightly stunned. This guy was also a vicious person. The moment the black-robed man attacked, 7 suddenly slashed with her fingers. Chi-chi! The 2 streaks of sword light instantly collapsed. At the same time, the black-robed man's chest was pierced by a streak of sword light. The black-robed man looked at 7 in disbelief. You! 7 looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian didn't understand. What are you doing? 7 didn't say anything. She hooked her right hand and the storage ring on the black-robed man's hand flew to Yi Xian.
Yi Xian, 7 said. Let's go.
Yi Xian nodded and left with 7. He didn't take the black-robed man's corpse because its level was too low and it didn't have the right to be refined into a demonic corpse. At that moment, the black-robed man opened his palm and a streak of sword light charged into the sky. Yi Xian said softly, "He seems to be calling someone." 7 kept silent for a moment and then said, "He is selling things and we are buying things. Why did he go back on his words?" Yi Xian smiled, "Because of benefits." 7 looked at Yi Xian. "Is money very important?" Yi Xian nodded. "Very important." 7 said softly, "I think that money is the easiest thing to get." Yi Xian was speechless. Those words. 7 looked at Yi Xian. "If you don't have it, then go to the God Kingdom treasury to get it. That is the wealth left by the past God Lords. It is our personal wealth and I have never used it." Yi Xian hesitated. "This? How can I do that?" 7 looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, "Since it is your good intentions, then if I don't accept it, then I won't be a good friend. Once we go back, I will find you." 7. P.S. If you want to act cool, you have to save up. If you don't have a script, you won't be able to act cool. Work hard to save up. Chapter 653. Yi Xian and 7 walked around the city, and Yi Xian noticed that there were very few people. Moreover, most of them were here to sell things. There were basically no residents in the city. However, these roadside stalls weren't simple as they were basically selling Dao Realm treasures. During this period, he even bought 2 Dao Realm swords, which was quite a good harvest. After walking 1 round, Yi Xian and 7 chose to leave. The moment the 2 of them walked out of the city gates, they were stopped by 2 old men. The 2 of them held a long sword in their hands. It was a swordsman. One of them stared at Yi Xian and 7. "You killed him." 7 nodded. "I killed him. Do you have a problem with that?" The old man squinted. "Aren't you a little too ruthless?" 7 turned and looked at Yi Xian. "Didn't he deserve to die?" Yi Xian said, "He deserved to die." 7 looked at the old man. "Do you have a problem?" The old man sneered. "How arrogant. Then let this old man have a taste of the 2 of your moves." Old man. Just at that moment, 7 suddenly disappeared. Chi. Without any warning, a sword light pierced through the old man's brow. The old man's body froze on the spot. His eyes were wide open and they were filled with disbelief. "You?" Beside him, the other old man wanted to escape, but 7's sword was faster. Chi. The old man's head was instantly sliced off by the sword light. 7 waved her right hand and the 2 old men's spatial rings flew into her hand. She then passed them to Yi Xian. "Let's go." Yi Xian took the storage ring. He said after a slight hesitation, "Actually, I'm not a greedy person." 7 nodded. "I know you're just poor." Yi Xian.
Very quickly, the two of them left Prairie City and continued forward. In the city, Yi Xian and Seven found out that there was another space gathering point in Xianhuang Great World which was a little far from here. Therefore, the two of them didn't choose to ride on their swords. Instead, they rode on the Imperial starship. On the Emperor starship, Seven looked at the Emperor starship beneath her feet and said, "This thing is not bad.
After we return, lend it to me.
I will let the craftsman sect study it and they should be able to create many."
Yi Xian smiled and said, "All right."
Seven looked into the distance and said softly, "The universe is huge."
Yi Xian nodded.
He had no idea how big the fourth-dimensional universe was. And above the fourth-dimensional universe, there was the unknown fifth-dimensional universe. It had to be said that humans were really tiny in this universe. However, when humans reached a certain level, the universe seemed insignificant in front of them. Not long after, Xueqi and Yi Xian suddenly stopped. Not far in front of them, there was a mountain that was thousands of feet tall. The mountain was like an inverted sword, floating in the starry sky. In the surroundings of this mountain, there were cranes that flew by and there were people sitting on the backs of some cranes.
Yi Xian said softly, "This should be a sect."
Seven nodded. Yi Xian smiled and said, "Let's take a detour." As he said that, he controlled the Emperor starship to fly to the right. At this moment, a young man suddenly appeared not far away from Seven and Yi Xian. The young man looked coldly at Yi Xian and Seven. "Don't you know the rules of my Xianyun sect?"
Yi Xian asked, "What rules?"
The young man said coldly, "Without my Xianyun sect's permission, no outsider is allowed to approach my Xianyun sect's territory." Yi Xian nodded and smiled. "Sorry, we will leave now." However, the young man still blocked in front of them. Yi Xian looked at the young man who was expressionless. "What do you think my Xianyun sect is?
That you can come and go as you please?"
At this moment, a sword intent suddenly rushed into the sky from within Yi Xian's body.
Wang! A sword hum shook the sky.
Sword God! Seeing this scene, the young man's expression changed and he hurriedly bowed. "So it's a sword god, sorry for my disrespect."
Yi Xian was silent.
The young man hurriedly said again, "I was rude just now, please forgive me." Yi Xian said, "Can we leave now?" The young man hurriedly nodded. "Of course." Yi Xian and Seven were about to leave when an old man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and Seven. Seeing the old man, the young man bowed slightly. "Elder Zong." Elder Zong nodded. "You may leave." The young man bowed again and turned to leave. Elder Zong looked at Yi Xian and Seven and smiled. "Both of you are sword gods at such a young age.
You are truly geniuses." Yi Xian smiled. "Senior is overpraising us. I would like to ask Senior about something. How can we head to the Black-Yellow Great World spatial stronghold faster?"
Elder Zong looked at Yi Xian. "You want to go to the spatial stronghold of the Black-Yellow Great World?"
Yi Xian nodded.
Elder Zong said solemnly, "That place is not a good place." Yi Xian smiled. "We are just going to take a look." Elder Zong said solemnly, "If both of you ride on the Emperor starship, it will take at least half a month to reach there. Moreover, it will not be very peaceful along the way." Yi Xian asked, "Why do you say so?" Elder Zong said, "Because people from the Black-Yellow Great World have been appearing frequently in our cosmos recently. I am afraid they are up to something big." As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian and Seven. "Both of you, if you want to go to the stronghold of the Black-Yellow Great World, you can use my Immortal Cloud Sex teleportation array. It is very convenient and you can reach there in less than half a day." Yi Xian smiled. "Many thanks then." Elder Zong smiled faintly. "Both of you, follow me." With that said, he brought Yi Xian and Seven to Immortal Cloud Sect. One had to admit that this Immortal Cloud Sect was indeed very celestial. Clouds and mist lingered around it and the palace was exquisite and grand, looking like a paradise. In a short while, Yi Xian and Seven came to a training field in Immortal Cloud Sect. Elder Zong looked at Yi Xian and Seven. "Please wait for a moment." With that said, he turned around and left. Seven said, "Something is not right." Yi Xian nodded with a playful smile on his lips. At this moment, the ground beneath Yi Xian and Seven's feet suddenly shook violently. Immediately after, countless lightning bolts suddenly shot up from the ground and trapped Seven and Yi Xian like a cage. Seven was expressionless. Yi Xian looked into the distance. Elder Zong suddenly appeared and behind him, there were 10 people. All of them were Emperor Realm experts. Elder Zong looked at Yi Xian and 7. Both of you don't seem surprised at all. Yi Xian smiled. If I didn't guess wrongly, you should know who we are. Elder Zong waved his right hand and a portrait appeared in front of Yi Xian. The person in the portrait was Yi Xian. Elder Zong looked at Yi Xian. I heard that the 5th-dimensional treasure is in your hands. Yi Xian nodded. Indeed. Elder Zong smiled. I really didn't expect that you would actually come to my Immortal Cloud Sect's territory. This is really heaven helping my Immortal Cloud Sect. Yi Xian smiled. How do you know that it isn't heaven that wants to exterminate your Immortal Cloud Sect? With that said, he stomped his right foot. Chi! A streak of sword light pierced through the air. This streak of sword light directly shattered those lightning bolts in front of him, and then headed straight for Elder Zong. Elder Zong squinted his eyes and opened his palm. In his palm, a spear suddenly appeared. At the next moment, he took a step forward and the spear in his hand shot out like a lightning dragon. Boom! As an explosion resounded, Elder Zong retreated explosively. And at this moment within the array, Yi Xian punched out. Burial Fist. With a punch, the surrounding lightning bolts instantly turned into ashes. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the Immortal Cloud Sect experts changed. Clearly, they had underestimated Yi Xian's strength. Yi Xian slowly walked towards Elder Zong and the others. He didn't say any nonsense and tapped his right foot lightly. In the surroundings, boundless power of the earth surged towards him like a tide. Elder Zong and the others' expressions became extremely grave. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly charged forward and punched out. Burial Fist. A powerful force surged out from Yi Xian's fist, and Elder Zong's expression changed when he noticed how powerful this force was. Attack together. As soon as he finished speaking, all 11 of them attacked in unison. Rumble. The space in the surroundings cracked apart, and Yi Xian retreated by almost 300 m. Even though his burial fist combined with the energy of the earth was extremely formidable, it wasn't enough to resist 11 emperors at the same time. Elder Zong gazed coldly at Yi Xian. I underestimated you. But so what? Today you. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. OM. A sword howl flashed. Elder Zong's expression changed drastically, and he swiftly swept his arms forward. A ray of sword light slashed over. Bang! Everyone watched as Elder Zong's arms were slashed into pieces, and his body was destroyed along with them. Elder Zong gazed at Yi Xian with astonishment. You! Yi Xian smiled. I'm a swordsman. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword in his hand was replaced by the soul-suppressing sword, and then he pointed it at Elder Zong from afar. Bang! Elder Zong's soul was instantly absorbed by Yi Xian. The remaining few Emperor Realm experts from the Immortal Cloud Sect had a drastic change in expression as they wanted to retreat. But at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly waved his right hand and 9 swords suddenly appeared above their heads. At the next moment, countless sword lights drowned the 10 of them. Rays of light swept out. Ultimate sword formation. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The sound of numerous rays of light slicing resounded incessantly, and then 2 emperors were instantly annihilated by the rays of light. Right when Yi Xian was about to continue, a powerful aura suddenly appeared. In the next moment, an old man appeared not too far away from Yi Xian. The old man waved his right hand, and a powerful force blasted the flying swords away. It was the sect master of Immortal Cloud Sect. The sect master glanced at the corpses of the 2 emperors, and then he looked at Yi Xian. This matter is over. All of you can leave. Over. Yi Xian grinned. His smile was a little creepy. You can fight whenever you want and stop whenever you don't want? Who do you think I am? This matter isn't over if you don't compensate me with 1 billion divine crystals. As soon as he finished speaking, a powerful sword intent swept out from his body. Chapter 654. 1 billion divine crystals. The sect master of the Immortal Cloud Sect looked coldly at Yi Xian. Letting you leave doesn't mean that my Immortal Cloud Sect is afraid of you. Understand? Yi Xian looked at the sect master of the Immortal Cloud Sect. Are you going to give it to me or not? The sect master of the Immortal Cloud Sect had an emotionless expression. No. What can you do? Yi Xian grinned.
He was just about to attack when Xueqi suddenly vanished. OM. A sword howl resounded abruptly. The sect master of the Immortal Cloud sect's expression changed when he saw Xueqi suddenly attack. He charged forward swiftly, and a powerful force swept out. Meanwhile, Xueqi's sword arrived. Bang! The sect master of the Immortal Cloud sect instantly retreated by 3 kilometers. At the same time, one of his arms had vanished. Everyone in the surroundings was completely stunned when they witnessed this scene. The sect master of the Immortal Cloud sect had disbelief on his face as well. "You! Extraordinary sword god!" Xueqi looked at the sect master of the Immortal Cloud sect. 2 billion divine crystals, not a single one less. 2 billion. Yi Xian was speechless. The sect master of the Immortal Cloud sect's expression was extremely unsightly as he stared fixedly at Xueqi. "You're asking for too much. 2 billion? Even the entire Immortal Cloud sect didn't have that many divine crystals." As soon as the sect master of the Immortal Cloud sect finished speaking, Xueqi suddenly vanished once more. Hiss! A strand of sword light flashed. The sect master of the Immortal Cloud sect's expression changed drastically. He didn't dare to receive that attack at all. However, it was too swift, and he couldn't dodge it at all. He had no choice but to receive it. And this time, another arm was gone. Xueqi looked at the sect master of the Immortal Cloud sect. 3 billion divine crystals, not a single one less. The sect master of the Immortal Cloud sect spoke ferociously. "You're going too far." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and looked to the right. "Ancestor summon! Ancestor summon!" As soon as he finished speaking, a white light shot into the sky from the back of the Immortal Cloud sect's hall. A figure silently condensed within the white light. In next to no time, a white-haired old man appeared within the white light. The white-haired elder scanned the surroundings, and his gaze finally fell on Yi Xian and Xueqi, who were not far away. Looking at Seven and Yi Xian, the white-haired old man frowned. He was about to say something when Seven suddenly said, "4 billion god crystals, not a single one less." Yi Xian was speechless. Not far away, the faces of the Immortal Cloud sect's sect master and the others were livid. In the air, the white-haired old man looked at Seven. After a long while he said softly, "Genius." As soon as he finished speaking, he took a step forward and a strong pressure pressed down on Xueqi. Xueqi was expressionless. She opened her palm and the sword at her waist suddenly landed in her hand. In the next moment, she slashed forward. Chi! A wisp of sword chi pierced through the air. Sword chi tore through the sky, instantly shattering the white-haired old man's powerful pressure. The white-haired old man punched forward. This fist forced Seven's sword energy to stop. But in the next moment, Seven appeared in front of the white-haired old man. Xueqi drew his sword and slashed. Boom! Under everyone's gaze, Seven had unknowingly appeared behind the white-haired old man. Everyone looked at the white-haired old man and the latter said softly, "To think that there would be such a monstrous person in this world." As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished completely. Seeing this scene, the faces of all the Immortal Cloud sect experts below instantly turned pale. In the air, Seven looked at the sect master of Immortal Cloud sect. 4 billion or the annihilation of Immortal Cloud sect. Choose. The sect master of Immortal Cloud sect had an extremely ugly expression. 4 billion. It could be said that the entire Immortal Cloud sect did not have that many god crystals. At this moment, Seven's palm suddenly opened. In the next moment, a sword suddenly flew out. 100 feet away, the head of an Immortal Cloud sect emperor expert flew out. He could not retaliate at all. Seeing this scene, the sect master of Immortal Cloud sect's expression changed drastically. At this moment, Seven looked at the sect master of Immortal Cloud sect. Seeing this scene, the latter's expression changed drastically. "Give, we will give." Seven nodded slightly. "I will give you an hour." After saying that, she retreated to Yi Xian's side. The sect master of Immortal Cloud sect hurriedly turned and left. Yi Xian said with a smile, "Do you think he will run?" Seven said indifferently, "Unless he wants to completely give up on Immortal Cloud sect." As she said that, she looked at Yi Xian. "It seems like a lot of people want that treasure of yours." Yi Xian nodded. "There are a lot of them." Seven said softly, "You might have a lot of troubles in the future, but it's fine." Yi Xian was a little curious. "Why is it fine?" 7 said. Because you have too many troubles. What does it matter if there are a little more? Yi Xian. At this moment, the sect master of Immortal Cloud sect appeared in front of 7 and Yi Xian. The sect master of Immortal Cloud sect hesitated for a moment before tapping with his finger.
10 storage rings landed in front of 7 and Yi Xian. This is all the wealth of my Immortal Cloud sect.
Yi Xian took a look. There were 7 billion god crystals in the storage rings. Among them, there were 9 Dao realm treasures, 9 bottles of various elixirs, and some natural treasures. 7 billion. 9 Dao realm treasures. Yi Xian thought about it and took out 5 storage rings for 7. However, 7 shook her head. I like these worldly possessions more. You keep them. Worldly possessions. Yi Xian was speechless. Seeing that 7 insisted, he didn't say anything else and kept the storage rings. One had to say that it was really good to have a rich friend. After Yi Xian kept the storage rings, he turned around and left with 7. The two of them didn't really want Immortal Cloud sect to take out 4 billion god crystals as they definitely didn't have that much. Seeing the two of them leave, the sect master of Immortal Cloud sect's expression instantly turned sinister. You, Yi Xian. As he spoke, he turned to look at an old man. Inform the people from Xianhuang Great World. Just say. Right at this moment, a man suddenly appeared behind the sect master of Immortal Cloud sect. In the next instant, a sword pierced into the back of the sect master's neck. Fresh blood splattered. This man was Yi Xian. Yi Xian grinned. I knew that you definitely wouldn't be willing. As he spoke, he held his sword horizontally. Chi! The sect master of Immortal Cloud sect's head instantly flew out. Yi Xian kept his sword and turned around, disappearing not far away. On the spot, the group of Immortal Cloud sect experts were dumbfounded. In the distant starry sky, on the Imperial starship, 7 said softly. You knew that he wouldn't be willing? Yi Xian nodded. How could he be willing? We took away all the treasures of Immortal Cloud sect. 7 looked at Yi Xian. Were we cruel? Yi Xian shook his head. If we were weak, our outcome would be worse. 7 nodded. She raised her head and looked into the distance, saying softly, in the eyes of those people from Xianhuang Great World, we are also weaklings. Yi Xian smiled and was about to speak. At this moment, the starry sky in the distance was suddenly torn apart. Immediately after, a figure flew out from within. It was a woman in black. After the woman in black came out, her gaze landed on Yi Xian and 7. At this moment, an old man appeared behind her. The old man looked at the woman in black coldly. Continue running. The woman in black walked in front of Yi Xian and 7. Her gaze landed on 7. Save me. 7 was expressionless. Reason. The woman in black hesitated for a moment before opening her right hand. In her right hand, there was a black dragon roar. This is my Han country's imperial jade seal. There are my Han country's treasures within. 7 shook her head. I'm not interested in money. Yi Xian. The woman in black was stunned. She hesitated for a moment before saying, Why don't you take a look first? 7 shook her head. At this moment, the old man not far away suddenly sneered. Does she dare to interfere in the matters of my Xianhuang Great World? Xianhuang Great World. Yi Xian and 7 were stunned. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly took the imperial jade seal from the woman in black's hands. Lady, don't worry. In broad daylight, I will definitely not allow anyone to kill in front of me. As he said this, he looked at the old man. Good and evil will always be repaid. Tendo reincarnate. If you don't believe, look up and see who will the heavens spare. Old man, I advise you to be kind. The old man looked at Yi Xian coldly. Just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Wang. A sword's hum resounded. The old man's pupils constricted as he punched forward. Rumble. A powerful fist forced Yi Xian's sword to stop. But in the next moment, Yi Xian punched directly at his face. Burial fist. Bang. In an instant, the old man retreated explosively for thousands of meters. As soon as he stopped, Yi Xian appeared in front of him again and slashed down with his sword. The old man roared furiously as he suddenly folded his hands in front of him. Rumble. The surrounding space suddenly trembled. Yi Xian returned to his original position while the old man retreated explosively for thousands of meters.
Moreover, a trace of blood flowed slowly from the corner of his mouth. The old man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. You! At this moment, 2 flying swords suddenly appeared in front of him. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly as he blasted his fist forward. Rumble! The sword radiance was shattered. However, Yi Xian showed up over his head without any sign the next second. Then a sword was swung straight down. The old man's expression changed drastically when he saw this attack, and he flashed backward and avoided it. However, he'd only just stopped when a few more flying swords appeared in front of him again. In the next moment, countless rays of light instantly enveloped him. Hiss, 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 hiss. The sound of numerous rays of light slicing resounded incessantly. Suddenly, the old man's furious shout resounded from within the rays of light, and then a powerful aura swept out and instantly shattered Yi Xian's rays of light. Moreover, Yi Xian had suddenly vanished. Hiss! Not too far away, a sword stabbed into the center of the old man's forehead. The surroundings fell silent. The old man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. How audacious of you! How dare you interfere in my sky-earth world? Meanwhile, Yi Xian raised his hand and swung his sword. Hiss! The old man's head flew into the air. Yi Xian's face remained emotionless as he took the old man's spatial ring, and then he turned around to gaze at the black-clothed young woman. The black-clothed young woman spoke solemnly. Is there enmity between all of you and the members of Sky-Earth World? Yi Xian nodded. The black-clothed young woman spoke solemnly. They're plundering our Dark Heaven continent right now. Yi Xian frowned slightly. The Dark Heaven continent? The black-clothed young woman gazed at Yi Xian. The treasures they possess are beyond your imagination. Yi Xian spoke with a serious expression on his face. Do you have some sort of misunderstanding towards me? I'm really not a greedy person. The black-clothed young woman was at a loss for words. P.S. Actually, I'm not a greedy person. I just like the feeling of receiving monthly passes from all of you. I don't really like such vulgar things. As someone who writes books, all I want to do is write them well. I've never cared about monthly passes or rewards. Really? I feel that monthly passes and money are vulgar. All of you know that I'm not a vulgar person. Chapter 655. The black-robed lady looked at Yi Xian. I'm telling the truth. They're currently plundering our mysterious heaven continent without the slightest scruple. Before coming to our mysterious heaven continent, they've already plundered several universes. Yi Xian asked, They are plundering without restraint? She nodded. Northern Army. This is an army from Xuanhuan Great World. This army often plunder resources from small worlds and universes. Everywhere they go there is nothing left. Yi Xian frowned. So arrogant? Arrogant? The black-clothed woman sneered. And this is just an outer legion. You don't know their main legion. Their main legion is the real arrogant ones. Wherever they go, those who obey them will prosper and those who oppose them will die. Yi Xian went silent for a moment before looking at 7. 7 was expressionless. Kill. Yi Xian smiled. Just what I wanted. He then looked at the black-shirt lady. Lead the way, she said solemnly. Just the 2 of you? Yi Xian nodded. Just the 2 of us. She shook her head. If it is just the 2 of you, you will be sending yourselves to death. Yi Xian smiled. Why? She said. They have many people and are strong. Yi Xian said. You don't have to worry about that. Lead the way. The black-clothed woman looked deeply at Yi Xian and Xueqi before leading the way. On the way, Yi Xian looked at the jade seal in his hand. What is this? The woman in black had a complicated expression on her face. The jade seal of my Han Empire. Yi Xian asked. You said that there are treasures inside. She nodded. Yes. Yi Xian asked. How do I open it? She wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Xian smiled. Why? You can't bear to part with it now? The black-clothed woman sighed softly. The rest of the treasures in my Han kingdom have basically been looted. Only this jade seal is left, and within this jade seal, there is a supreme divine grade dragon vein. Super divine grade. Not far away, 7 suddenly said. Transcendent god grade? The black-clothed woman nodded. Transcendent divine grade.
7 looked at Yi Xian. This thing is okay. My god country only has one. Yi Xian flicked his finger, and the jade seal flew in front of Xueqi. For you.
7 shook her head. No. Yi Xian asked. Why? 7 said. Keep it.
You don't even have one. When he heard this, Yi Xian's heart felt warm. He smiled and was about to say something when 7 said, If I say no, then no. Just as Yi Xian was about to speak, Xiao Linger appeared in front of Yi Xian. The 6th floor said that they can give this to me. If I put it in the pagoda, there will be a lot of spiritual qi in the pagoda. My spirit tree can absorb it, and so can Xiao Ta.
Yi Xian asked, Senior, is that so?
He didn't really trust this little Ling. He didn't know where this girl learned to lie from. Sometimes she would lie. The 6th floor said, Yes. Your pagoda needs spiritual qi too. A dragon vein of this level is good for the pagoda. Yi Xian nodded and passed the seal to Xiao Linger. Xiao Linger grinned and hugged the seal before returning to the prison pagoda. In just a moment, a white dragon appeared on the 2nd floor. Transcendent divine grade dragon vein. Along with the appearance of this dragon vein, the spiritual qi in the prison pagoda became denser. He could sense that Xiao Ta was getting excited. Of course, the most excited one was Xiao Linger, because the dragon vein would be of great help to the spirit trees she planted. Outside the prison pagoda, the black-clothed woman beside Yi Xian suddenly said, I feel like you don't understand their strength. Yi Xian smiled and didn't say anything. Black-yellow great world. He knew that this world must be extremely powerful because this force had been sucking the blood of other universes. Under such circumstances, the people of black-yellow great world must be getting stronger and stronger. The black-clothed woman said in a low voice, Why do you want to go against the people of black-yellow great world? Yi Xian collected his thoughts and smiled. We have some grudges with them. Saying so, he looked into the distance. How long until we arrive? The black-clothed woman said. An hour. Yi Xian said softly, How many people are there in the army from black-yellow great world? The black-clothed woman said. Only 100. 100. Yi Xian looked at the black-clothed woman and was stunned. 100 can destroy your black-blue great world? The black-clothed woman's face was ugly. The strength of these 100 people is beyond your imagination. Yi Xian said in a low voice. All of them are in the Emperor realm? The black-clothed woman shook her head. There are only about 30 Emperor realm, but they are extremely powerful. Moreover, they are wearing the best equipment. Not only that, each of them has a Tendo realm celestial wolf demon beast. Saying so, she looked at Yi Xian. You will know how terrifying they are when you meet them later. Yi Xian nodded. Let's hope so. The black-clothed woman glanced at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. About 4 hours later, the black-clothed woman suddenly said, It's in front. Yi Xian and Xueqi looked up and saw a planet not far away. At this moment, this planet was emitting an extremely pungent smell of blood. Yi Xian frowned. They won't massacre the people of your continent, right? The black-clothed woman was expressionless. That's what they did. Hearing this, Xueqi frowned. Even ordinary people? The black-clothed woman nodded. What they mean is to cut the weeds and eliminate the roots. Eliminate the weeds and eliminate the roots. Xueqi shook her head. Inhumane. Although God Nation had waged war, they hadn't slaughtered the weak. The actions of the black-yellow great world were inhumane. They were purely plundering. At this moment, Xueqi suddenly said, Kill them all. Yi Xian looked at Xueqi. Needless to say, this little girl was angry. In next to no time, the three of them entered the Xiansong continent. As soon as they entered, Yi Xian and Xueqi frowned. The smell of blood. The smell of blood in this universe was too strong. Needless to say, many people had definitely died. At this moment, the black-clothed woman said, Let's go to Han. Han is the most prosperous place in our Xiansong continent. They must be there. Yi Xian nodded. Lead the way. The black-clothed woman's figure trembled and flashed towards the distance. In next to no time, the three of them arrived at the imperial capital of Han. Before they even entered the city, a monstrous smell of blood assaulted their faces. Yi Xian looked towards the city. From the sky, the city was covered in corpses. It was really a field of corpses and rivers of blood. This was a massacre. At this moment, an armored man appeared in front of Yi Xian and the other two. When he saw the black-clothed woman beside Yi Xian, the armored man grinned. "This woman is so beautiful, haha." As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards the black-clothed woman. The black-clothed woman looked coldly at the armored man and did not dodge. And just when the armored man was a few feet away from the black-clothed woman, his head suddenly flew off. Blood spurted out like a fountain. The man's eyes were wide open, and there was disbelief in his eyes. The black-clothed woman turned to look at Yi Xian. Her eyes filled with shock. Yi Xian and Xueqi walked towards the city. Along the way, there were corpses everywhere, and many of them were children. Cruel. Yi Xian's face was as gloomy as still water. He had also killed people, but he had never laid his hands on children, women, and children. Killing the weak would only make one look incompetent. And he did not expect that some people could be so cruel. And once these people entered the chaotic universe, it was hard to imagine what would happen to the chaotic universe. At this moment, a middle-aged man holding a spear suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian and the other two. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian and the other two. "You are." Just as the middle-aged man said this, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared. Wang. The sound of a sword suddenly shook the sky. Boom. Before the middle-aged man could react, he was sent flying. And the moment he was sent flying, a sword flashed past his throat. Chi! The middle-aged man's head flew off. Impudent! At this moment, an angry roar suddenly came from the sky. Then, a powerful aura swept over from the sky. And at this moment, Xueqi suddenly disappeared. Wang! The sound of a sword soared into the sky. In an instant, Xueqi returned to her original position. But this time, there was a bloody head at her feet. Seeing this scene, the black-clothed girl nearby was completely stunned. This Yi Xian and Xueqi's strength had far exceeded her expectations. Rumble, rumble, rumble. At this moment, the ground not far away suddenly trembled. Soon, a powerful pressure came from the distant streets. Yi Xian looked into the distance. There, 100 cavalrymen riding Sky Wolf were charging towards them. One had to admit that the aura of these 100 people was very powerful. It could be said that they were not any weaker than Xueqi's guards. Yi Xian took a step forward and rotated his right foot. In an instant, the power of the earth gathered around him. Yi Xian slowly clenched his right hand, and a powerful aura suddenly gathered around him. At this moment, the cavalrymen were only 10 feet away from him. The powerful aura was suffocating. All of a sudden, Yi Xian took a step forward and threw a punch. Burial fist. Rumble. With this punch, a monstrous aura swept out from Yi Xian's fist. In an instant, the entire Han city shook violently as if there was a huge earthquake. And in front of Yi Xian's group, the 100 cavalrymen were forced to a stop by the power and aura of this punch. At this moment, Yi Xian's group was in a mess. If it wasn't for the aura of the 100 cavalrymen, Yi Xian's punch could have destroyed the entire Han city. Burial fist. There was no doubt about its power. In front of Yi Xian, a middle-aged man riding a sky wolf walked out. The sky wolf under him glared angrily at Yi Xian, and its eyes were blood-red as if it wanted to devour Yi Xian. The middle-aged man looked at Yi Xian and was about to speak. But not far away, Yi Xian suddenly said, "Don't say anything. Either you kill me, or I kill all of you." As soon as he finished speaking, he lightly stomped his right foot and shot out like a sword. Chapter 656. Kill. The moment Yi Xian charged out, a wave of sword light enveloped the group of people. The Northern Army didn't back down in the slightest. Kill! The general in the lead bellowed, and 100 people charged out in unison. Seven raised her head and looked into the sky. In the next moment, she charged up into the sky. The girl in black glanced at Yi Xian in the distance, then turned and left. In the distance, Yi Xian charged straight into the group of 100 people. Among them, there were 7 great emperors, while the rest were at least at the mastery realm. One had to admit that these 100 people were very strong. With their combined strength, they were able to suppress Yi Xian. If it was a one-on-one fight, Yi Xian could kill anyone in a second. But when they teamed up, there was nothing he could do. Boom! At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly retreated several hundred meters. As soon as he stopped, several spears pierced through the air toward him. Yi Xian slashed forward with the executing heaven sword. TCH. The spears were shattered in an instant. At the same time, he took a step forward and punched out. Fist of burial. Rumble. In an instant, the dozen or so soldiers charging at him were pulverized into mincemeat. But the next moment, a spear stabbed into his forehead. Bang! Yi Xian retreated dozens of meters. The spear hadn't broken through his defenses.
His physical body was at the level of a great emperor.
Yi Xian stomped his right foot and turned into a wave of sword light that shot forward. TCH.
Nearby, several soldiers' heads flew into the air.
But soon, Yi Xian was forced back again.
But in the blink of an eye, he was once again charging at the group of soldiers.
The number of northern region soldiers on the battlefield was dwindling, and Yi Xian was killing a soldier with every passing moment. Kill. There was only one thought in Yi Xian's mind, and that was to kill. He had no good feelings toward the people from Black Origin Great World at all. When the people from Black Origin Great World came looking for him, it was already destined that they would oppose each other. Either you die or I live. The more Yi Xian killed, the fewer Northern Army soldiers there were. Now, there were less than 50 of them left. Yi Xian had already killed half of them. As for Yi Xian, not only was his physique at the Emperor realm, but he was also wearing a Dao realm defensive treasure. Although he was injured, it wasn't fatal. Bang! Right at this moment, Yi Xian was suddenly pushed back by the joint forces of over a dozen people. After Yi Xian was pushed back, the leader of the Northern Army suddenly shouted, "Retreat! Retreat!" They no longer wanted to continue fighting with Yi Xian, because they had already lost too many people, and this Yi Xian, not only did he not weaken, he instead became stronger. Therefore, he decisively chose to retreat. The remaining dozens of Northern Army soldiers turned around and left. However, Yi Xian had no intention of giving up.
With a shake of his body, he charged toward the Northern Army.
The leader of the Northern Army's expression changed when he saw this.
Hurry to the teleportation formation.
With that, everyone sped up and rushed out of the city. Behind them, people were dying at every moment. Yi Xian was fast, but his sword was even faster. A flying sword followed closely behind the Northern Army like a maggot on a tarsal bone. Before long, the Northern Army arrived at a teleportation formation. As soon as they jumped onto it, a blue light enveloped them. At this moment, a tiny empty character suddenly appeared between Yi Xian's brows. Space Dao Law. In the next moment, the space around the Northern Army was changed by Yi Xian. This change made the teleportation formation lose its effectiveness. Sensing this, the Northern Army's expressions turned extremely ugly. The leader of the Northern Army glared at Yi Xian, who was walking toward them from afar. "Do you know who we are?" "We are the subordinates of the Northern King of the Xuanhuan Great World."
Yi Xian suddenly grinned.
"Do you know who I am?" The leader stared at Yi Xian.
"Who are you?"
Yi Xian smiled. "My name is Yi Xian, and I specialize in killing people from your Xuanhuan Great World." With that, he suddenly disappeared.
The cry of a sword abruptly resounded in the battlefield.
Nearby, the leader's expression turned ferocious. "Kill!" A group of people dashed towards Yi Xian as soon as they finished speaking. An hour later, Yi Xian lay on the ground, and corpses were everywhere around him. Not a single one of the 100 Northern Army soldiers had survived.
All of them had been cleanly slaughtered by him.
On the ground, Yi Xian quietly looked at the sky.
A faint red glow was emitting from his body.
It wasn't the power of his bloodline.
It was the demonic nature in his body.
Ever since he had turned into a demon, his demonic nature had grown stronger and stronger. And he himself had also discovered this point. However, he didn't think it was a bad thing. Demonic nature was also human nature. He didn't regret slaughtering the Northern Army at all. Or rather, it felt great. Too great. Just at this moment, a sword cry came from the horizon. In the next moment, Xueqi appeared beside him. Xueqi glanced at Yi Xian. "Are you okay?" Yi Xian nodded. Seven said, "Just now, there was someone who exceeded Emperor Realm and I killed him. But he seems to be calling for help." "Calling for help?" Yi Xian grinned.
"That's good."
Xueqi nodded.
"I have an idea." Yi Xian said. "Speak."
Xueqi said softly, It's a waste of time to find them like this. Why don't we let them find us?
Yi Xian said with a smile. Great.
Xueqi nodded. Then she opened her palm. There was a storage ring in her palm. A black storage ring. Xueqi passed it to Yi Xian. For you.
Yi Xian said seriously. I am not a greedy person.
Xueqi looked at Yi Xian. I know.
Yi Xian asked.
Really?
Xueqi nodded.
You are poor, too poor. I understand you.
Yi Xian. A moment later, Yi Xian started to clear his spoils of war.
Over 100 storage rings.
Looking at the 100-odd storage rings in front of him, Yi Xian grinned from ear to ear.
Finally, he counted them. Along with the ones in front of him, he had a total of
7 billion god crystals, 52 Dao realm treasures, and some miscellaneous items. Of course, there was also the transcendent grade god meridian in the tower. Close to 5 billion god crystals.
Yi Xian exclaimed.
He had never seen so much money in his life. He didn't earn this money. He got it from killing people. He, Yi Xian, killed people based on who they were, but these people from Xuanhuang Great World didn't. To them, the world outside of Xuanhuang Great World was a target for them to plunder. One could imagine how rich the people in that world were. Right at that moment, the black-robed girl appeared in front of Yi Xian and Xueqi. Behind her was a boy who was around 6 or 7 years old. His face was a little pale, but there was no fear in his eyes. The black-robed girl looked at the corpses all over the place and then at Yi Xian and Xueqi.
Thank you. Xueqi looked at the black-robed girl. How many people are left here?
The black-robed girl said solemnly. A few.
Xueqi said, bring them to the chaotic universe.
There will be people there to settle you.
Chaotic universe?
The black-robed girl was stunned. You are from the chaotic universe?
Xueqi nodded. Have you heard of it?
The black-robed girl said solemnly. Yes, I heard that a fifth-dimensional treasure appeared there. Yi Xian, the black-robed girl said, the people from Xuanhuang Great World won't let the chaotic universe off.
Xueqi looked at her. I am still alive. Who dares to bully my people? The black-robed girl looked at Xueqi. Can all of us go to the chaotic universe? Xueqi nodded. Yes. But you must have your own value. Do you understand?
The black-robed girl said solemnly. We have many factions and sects here. They are all hidden. If we go to your side, Xueqi said, bring your martial path civilization there. When you go there, people will find you and communicate with you. Of course, when you go there, you will be people of my god country and have to follow the rules there.
Do you understand?
The black-robed girl nodded.
Understood.
Xueqi pointed and a white light entered her brow.
This is the route. Go.
The black-robed girl nodded and then pulled the boy away.
At that moment, the boy looked at Yi Xian. Did you just kill all of them? Yi Xian nodded. The boy looked at Yi Xian.
How can I become as outstanding as you?
When he heard this, Yi Xian was delighted. This fellow really knew how to speak.
Yi Xian got up and walked up to the little boy. He opened his palm, and a Dao-level sword appeared in his hand. He handed the sword to the little boy. Work hard to become stronger and protect the people around you. Do you understand? The boy took the sword and looked at Yi Xian. I will work hard. After saying this, he turned around and left with the black-robed girl. Very quickly, the people of this continent started to move towards the chaotic universe. Xueqi looked into the sky and said softly, their people should be here soon.
Yi Xian stood beside Xueqi.
The enemy will get stronger and stronger.
Xueqi was expressionless.
One day, I will stab my sword into Xuanhuang Great World.
Yi Xian looked at Xueqi.
Xueqi said, I hate Xuanhuang Great World, so they should disappear.
Yi Xian was speechless. At that moment, Xueqi looked at Yi Xian.
Xuanhuang Great World has done so much evil. Am I doing this to enforce justice on behalf of the heavens? Yi Xian thought about it and said, you can say that.
Xueqi nodded.
Actually, I am a good person.
Yi Xian's expression became weird.
This Xueqi. At that moment, the demon lord's voice suddenly resounded.
It's over.
This girl has been with you for so long,
and her personality has started to change. At this moment, the space in front of the two suddenly split open, and a middle-aged man walked out. The middle-aged man glanced at Yi Xian and Xueqi, and in the next moment, he looked at the corpses at their feet. After a moment of silence he said, "Sorry to disturb you. I was just passing by." With that, he turned around and returned to the spatial crack. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 657. The middle-aged man had vanished. Yi Xian and Xueqi looked at each other. The middle-aged man's actions left them a little dumbfounded. "He's leaving just like that?"
Xueqi suddenly said. "Wait."
Yi Xian nodded.
It didn't take long for the space before them to be torn apart again, and then the middle-aged man had appeared once more.
This time, there were two more people behind him. They were experts at the God-rank realm. The God-rank realm was above the Emperor realm.
Yi Xian gazed at the middle-aged man and smiled. "Weren't you just passing by?"
The middle-aged man gazed coldly at Yi Xian and Xueqi. "Who exactly are you?" Yi Xian didn't answer him. He gazed at Xueqi instead. "How many do you want to fight?"
Xueqi thought for a moment and said, "All of them." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished.
Hiss! A ray of light tore through the air.
The middle-aged man's expression changed. An extraordinary sword god.
As soon as he finished speaking, Xueqi's sword arrived before him. Meanwhile, the middle-aged man and the other two attacked in unison. Hiss! 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 Hiss!
The middle-aged man and the other two were instantly enveloped by an expanse of light. 3 breaths of time later, Xueqi returned to Yi Xian's side, and only the middle-aged man remained not too far away from her. As for the other two Divine Crystal Realm experts, they'd fallen to the ground. The middle-aged man's face was extremely pale. Besides deep fear and terror, there was also terror in his eyes as he gazed at Xueqi. Who exactly are you?" Xueqi gazed at the middle-aged man. "Go back and get everyone else." The middle-aged man spoke fiercely. "Are you provoking my Sky-Earth world?"
Xueqi nodded. "Aye."
When she spoke up to this point, she glanced at Yi Xian and said, "The 2 of us will fight all of you. Go back and get everyone else."
Yi Xian was speechless.
The middle-aged man laughed fiercely, and then he turned around and left without saying anything.
Yi Xian collected the corpses of the 2 divine crystal powerhouses and handed them over to the demon lord. These 2 divine crystal powerhouses had a total of 500 million divine crystals and 10 Tao realm treasures. Needless to say, the experts of Sky-Earth world were truly too wealthy.
7 suddenly said, "God realm is too weak."
Yi Xian looked at 7 and she said softly, "Why are you so weak?" Meanwhile, the Fiend Lord's voice suddenly resounded. "Little girl, only now do you realize that there's always someone better out there. You're a monster, but there's someone even more monstrous than you.
Even in the Xuanhuang Great World, the reason why things are going so smoothly for you too is because that group of people doesn't fully understand you too.
If they knew about your talents and combat strength, they wouldn't have sent these people."
7 nodded. "I know."
As she spoke, she looked at the spatial crack in the distance.
"They should have looked at us."
Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, "I think we should keep a low profile."
7 said, "But strength doesn't allow it."
Yi Xian was speechless.
The demon lord said softly, "You 2 little fellows." Right at this moment, the spatial rift in front of them suddenly trembled, and it wasn't long before an old man in a linen robe walked out from within it.
The old man's body was ethereal. Obviously, it wasn't his true body.
After the old man appeared, his gaze descended onto 7, and his eyes suddenly flickered with golden light. A short while later, his expression gradually became solemn.
Innate Sword Tao spiritual body, peak extraordinary sword god, peak imperial realm. When he spoke up to this point, he took a step forward while the golden light in his eyes turned violet.
A short while later, his expression became extremely solemn.
Tao spiritual root.
Innate spiritual intelligence.
As he spoke, his face had turned pale.
Meanwhile, the old man took another step forward while the violet light in his eyes turned black and white.
A long time passed before his hands started to tremble. The fate of a human king. Karmic luck of the Grand Tao. How could this be possible? This is impossible. It's completely impossible. As he spoke, he took a few dozen steps back. A human king. What was a human king?
At the beginning of the fourth dimension, the universe was in chaos.
At that time, humans had just appeared and were weak. In the end, a human king appeared. That was the first human king in human history. This human king, she led the human race to fight against the Tendo, the demon race, and the myriad of races in the universe. He also founded the human race's civilization, martial arts civilization, and established various human systems. It could be said that the human race's civilization began with this human king Shi.
After that, a few more human kings appeared in the human race.
These human kings were all geniuses, and they brought the human race to an even higher peak.
In that era, the human king was higher than the Tendo, and even higher than the legendary heavenly gods.
The last human king of the human race was called Zhou. This human king failed to fight against the Tendo and heavenly gods.
After that, the human race no longer had a human king, only the Son of Heaven.
The Son of Heaven. The Son of Heaven. After Zhou, the human race was ruled by the Tendo and some ancient heavenly gods.
It was also after that that the Tendo was supreme, and the divine power was supreme. The reason why the old man was shocked was because he saw the fate of a human king on 7.
What did this mean?
It meant that this little girl could very well become a human king.
Once this little girl became a human king, it must be known that although the human kings had already disappeared, these human kings still had countless followers behind them. Even the fourth dimension's Tendo and those ancient heavenly gods did not dare to look down on them. If those people knew that a new human king had appeared in this world, the old man could not imagine what would happen. Nowadays, many people only knew about the Son of Heaven and emperors. No one knew about the human king, but some of the ancient monsters knew about it. The old man stared at 7. After a moment, he turned around and was about to leave.
At this time, Yi Xian, who was not far away, suddenly said, "Don't you want to look at me?"
The old man turned around and looked at Yi Xian. His eyes emitted a purple light. After a moment, he shook his head, wasting old man's Xian qi. After saying that, he turned around and entered the spatial crack.
In his original position, Yi Xian flew into a rage. "What did you say? Don't you mother****** leave?" After saying that, he raised his sword and rushed over.
But when he rushed to the spatial crack, it suddenly disappeared. Yi Xian was infuriated and slashed down with his sword. Chi! That space was directly shattered by him. At this time, 7 looked at Yi Xian. "Don't care about what others think." Yi Xian shrugged. "Actually, I'm not angry." At this time the demon lord's voice sounded. "From your appearance, your talent is indeed not top-notch, but," Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "but what?" The demon lord said, "But most of the time, talent is not the only standard to measure a person. Since ancient times, many outstanding people did not necessarily have good talent. The path of Tao relies more on one's own efforts and opportunities. Of course, your talent is not bad, he just can't see through you." Hearing this, Yi Xian laughed. "Senior's vision is unique, not something those ordinary people can compare to." The demon lord. At this time 7 suddenly said, "Looks like they won't be coming for a while. Let's go to their spatial stronghold to find them." Yi Xian nodded. Okay. With that said, the two turned into a sword light and soared into the sky. After entering the starry sky, the two disappeared into the distant end of the galaxy on the Imperial starship. Target: the next spatial stronghold. On the Imperial starship, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. Absorb. Among the spoils of war, there were 6 Tao realm swords, and now he wanted to take this opportunity to break through to the origin realm. When he recultivated in adversity, he stopped at this realm. And now, what he needed to do was to improve his realm. After a sword was inserted into his abdomen, a pure spiritual energy exploded from his body. Tao realm swords. How terrifying was the energy of this sword! Yi Xian began to absorb this energy madly, and gradually, a wave of aura spread out from his body. Not far away, 7 glanced at Yi Xian, then turned to look at the distant end of the starry sky. 3 days later.
Yi Xian, who was sitting cross-legged on the ground, suddenly opened his eyes, and a wave of aura suddenly floated out from his mouth.
Origin realm.
At this moment not far away, 7 suddenly said, "Look."
Hearing this, Yi Xian looked up, and in the distant end of the starry sky, there was a long bridge.
The bridge stretched across the starry sky, and the left and right sides could not see the end, and the bridge was empty, with gusts of cold wind blowing. It was quite strange.
Yi Xian said softly, "What is this?"
7 shook her head. "Let's go take a look."
Yi Xian nodded, and soon, the two arrived in front of the bridge. As soon as they arrived, a wave of cold wind blew over. Yi Xian frowned slightly. "What is this?" 7 jumped onto the bridge, and as soon as she arrived, she frowned.
At this moment, the demon lord's voice rang out in Yi Xian's mind. "This place is not normal, be careful."
Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression became serious. He looked around, and just as he was about to speak, a woman in red suddenly appeared in front of him and 7. The woman in red had a ferocious face, and she was a ghost body.
7 said softly, "Ghost?" Yi Xian looked at the woman in red, and the latter was looking at him and 7 viciously.
Yi Xian said solemnly, "She is not simple." 7 looked around with an indifferent expression. However, her left hand was holding onto the sword by her waist. Just at this moment, another soul appeared behind them. Yi Xian turned around and his expression changed.
That was because in front of him was a dense mass of souls.
At this moment, the entire bridge was filled with souls. These souls were all extremely ferocious, and they didn't look like normal souls. At this moment, 7 suddenly said, "They are nurturing evil souls." Yi Xian looked at 7, and she said softly, "There are some evil cultivation techniques recorded in the history books, and this evil soul nurturing is one of them. This bridge should be a god realm treasure, and someone is using it to nurture evil souls."
After saying this, she looked around. "Let's go."
Yi Xian nodded his head. The two of them were about to leave when a voice rang out from the bridge. "You want to leave? Isn't it too late?" The moment the voice landed, numerous evil souls charged towards Yi Xian and 7. 7 frowned and was about to attack. At this moment, Yi Xian stopped her. "Let me perform." 7 was speechless. "P.S. Did you misunderstand what I said yesterday? I like the feeling of you giving me monthly tickets. I didn't tell you not to send me. You can't twist my words." Chapter 658. Souls. It could be said that the thing that Yi Xian feared the least was souls. Regardless of whether it was the soul-suppressing sword or his soul-setting sword, both of them were absolutely effective against soul-type creatures. Looking at the incoming souls, Yi Xian opened his palm, and the soul-suppressing sword appeared in his hand. In the next instant, the soul-suppressing sword flew out. Wang! A sword hum rang out from the bridge. The moment the soul-suppressing sword appeared, the souls on the bridge revealed expressions of shock and fear. At the same time, a voice rang out. "Soul-suppressing sword. You actually have the soul-suppressing sword. You." A strong force suddenly dashed towards Yi Xian as soon as he finished speaking. 7 frowned. She raised her hand and slashed to the right. With a slash of the sword, an afterimage retreated several thousand feet in front of Xueqi. Xueqi looked into the distance, and a few hundred meters in front of her, there was a skinny old man. He was hunched over, and he only had one eye. He held a black banner in his hand. The old man stared at Xueqi, transcendent sword god. Xueqi sized up the old man. "Ugly." Yi Xian was speechless. It had to be said that the old man was truly ugly, especially his face. There were many black warts on it, and he looked extremely disgusting. However, it was a little hurtful for Xueqi to say it so directly. As expected, the old man's face turned savage. "Little girl, do you know who the person in front of you is?" Xueqi lowered her head. "I don't want to look at you." "Impudent." The old man was enraged, and he suddenly disappeared, and a powerful aura swept towards Xueqi. Xueqi raised her hand and slashed out. The old man was sent back to his original position. The old man looked at Xueqi, shocked and furious. "You!" Xueqi turned to look at Yi Xian, and she glanced at Yi Xian. "You look more pleasing to the eye." Yi Xian was speechless. At this moment, the soul-suppressing sword in Yi Xian's hand was still frantically devouring the surrounding evil souls. The soul-suppressing sword was very excited. "Young lord, these souls are great nourishment. I will definitely be able to advance." "Advancement? The divine realm?" Yi Xian said softly. "Then absorb more." The soul-suppressing sword said.
All right. At this moment, the skinny old man in the distance suddenly retreated a few dozen meters. Then, he clasped his hands together and began to chant something. Gradually, the bridge beneath Yi Xian's feet began to tremble violently. Soon, the evil spirits in the surroundings suddenly became violent. The soul-suppressing sword suddenly said, "Young lord, these people's souls have all been refined into evil spirits." Yi Xian asked, "Ferocious spirit?" The soul-suppressing sword said, "Yes, these people's souls will forever be his slaves, unable to be freed. It's very miserable. If I absorb them, I can free them." Yi Xian glanced at those souls. These souls did not have any intelligence. They should have been erased. Yi Xian asked, "Can you deal with them?" The soul-suppressing sword said, "Young lord, you can't underestimate me. All those years ago in the Nether race, I specialized in suppressing evil spirits. Moreover, I specialized in suppressing peerless experts. These evil spirits are simply a piece of cake to me." Yi Xian smiled. "Then I'll leave them to you." The soul-suppressing sword trembled violently, and then it transformed into a ray of black light that flashed through the surroundings. In an instant, countless evil spirits were absorbed by it. The skinny old man's expression became extremely unsightly when he witnessed this scene. "You! Why do you possess the Nether race's soul-suppressing sword?" Yi Xian gazed at the old man. "Take a guess." The old man stared fixedly at Yi Xian. "Do you know? Who is this old man?" Yi Xian shook his head. "I don't know." The old man spoke fiercely. "The old man is a foreign elder under the command of the king of the northern region. The Sky-Split World." Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he said, "You're from Sky-Split World?" The old man spoke coldly. "You don't believe me?" Yi Xian thought for a moment and said, "I believe you. I'm quite curious about how you know about the Nether race. According to my knowledge, the Nether race is from the Chaosverse." The old man gazed at Yi Xian. "You aren't a member of the Nether race." Yi Xian smiled. "Why would you say that?" The old man spoke coldly. "The Nether race is from the Chaosverse indeed. However, some of the experts of their race left the Chaosverse all those years ago. For example, the Nether King. He went to Sky-Split World." Sky-Split World. Yi Xian frowned slightly. "The Nether King is at Sky-Split World?" The old man gazed at Yi Xian. "You're from the Chaosverse." Yi Xian nodded. The old man laughed coldly. "You probably don't know yet, but my Sky-Split World has already set its sights on your Chaosverse. In less than a month, your Chaosverse will vanish from this world." Yi Xian laughed. "If I'm not wrong, you're calling for someone, right?" The old man's eyes narrowed slightly. "You know what the old man is planning, so why haven't you left?" Yi Xian grinned. "Why don't you guess?" The old man gazed at Yi Xian, and then his expression suddenly changed. "You're Yi Xian." Yi Xian was slightly stunned, and then he said, "You recognize me?" The old man said in a low voice, "You have that fifth-dimensional treasure in your possession." When he spoke up to hear, a wisp of undisguised greed appeared in his eyes. Yi Xian smiled. "I do. Do you want it?" The old man gazed at Yi Xian and didn't speak. Right at this moment, the space by his side suddenly trembled, and then it didn't take long for the trembling space to be torn apart. After that, a violet-robed old man walked out from within it. The violet-robed old man gazed at the old man. "Kujin, you actually asked for guidance." The old man glanced at Xueqi and said, "Help me keep her busy." The old man glanced at Xueqi and smiled. "What's in it for me?" Kujin spoke coldly. 500 million divine crystals." The old man chuckled. 1 billion. Kujin glanced at the old man. "All right." The old man roared with laughter, and then he gazed at Xueqi. He sized her up and said, "I presume that you're a monstrous genius. Come, let me see how monstrous you are." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished. An afterimage flashed across the battlefield. Xueqi had an emotionless expression on her face as she suddenly vanished. OM. A sword howl suddenly tore through the sky. In an instant, the violet-robed old man moved 3 kilometers back. At the same time, one of his arms had vanished. After the old man stopped moving, he gazed at Xueqi with terror. "You!" When he spoke up to hear, He suddenly turned around to gaze at Ku Jin, and he roared furiously, "You tricked the old man!"
Ku Jin remained silent. He noticed that this little girl's strength was much stronger than he'd imagined. She was too formidable. Ku Jin glanced at Xueqi, and then he turned around and left. He didn't hesitate at all. The old man was both shocked and furious when he saw Ku Jin flee, and he hurriedly turned around and left as well. Xueqi was about to chase after him. Meanwhile, her beautiful brows knit together slightly, and she turned around to look at Yi Xian. At this moment, countless souls were surging towards the soul-suppressing sword that stood before Yi Xian. As it absorbed more and more souls, the aura emanated by the soul-suppressing sword had practically multiplied by a few times. Xueqi's brows knit together slightly because the bridge beneath her and Yi Xian had suddenly started trembling. Danger! Xueqi walked over to Yi Xian's side. Suddenly, the entire bridge exploded apart. Both Yi Xian and Xueqi had vanished. Not long after Yi Xian and Xueqi vanished, a middle-aged man appeared here, and there were two old men behind him. One of the old men was Ku Jin from before. Ku Jin glanced at the surroundings, and his face was filled with bewilderment. They were here just now. The middle-aged man glanced at the surroundings and said, "Are you sure that little girl has attained the extraordinary sword god realm?" Ku Jin nodded, and his expression gradually became solemn. "Absolutely." The middle-aged man spoke softly. "This ruler isn't simple at all." Ku Jin gazed at the middle-aged man. "General Feng Yi, we must eliminate these two people if we want to conquer the chaotic universe." The middle-aged man glanced at Ku Jin. "Are you going to kill them?" Ku Jin's expression changed slightly, and he hurriedly lowered his head. He was one of the 3 peerless generals under the command of the king of the northern region. A peerless general. Every single one of them was an extraordinary expert that guarded an entire region in the universe. Regardless of whether it was in terms of individual strength or ability to lead troops, they were top-rate existences. However, this person before him was in charge of 100,000 troops of the northern region, and his status was extremely respected in the northern territory of the universe. The middle-aged man called Feng Yi raised his head and looked towards the distance, and he spoke softly. "That little girl has the fate of a mortal king. He can't be allowed to live." The fate of a mortal king. Ku Jin's expression changed. She has the fate of a mortal king? Feng Yi paid no attention to Ku Jin, and he turned his head slightly to the side. "Summon all the expeditionary forces. They must arrive in the starry sky of the chaotic universe within a day. Anyone who doesn't arrive will be killed regardless of the reason." As he spoke, he paused for a moment before he continued. "Immediately gather all the information on the divine king of the chaotic universe. It isn't just her, I want all the information on the divine kingdom since the beginning." The old man bowed slightly, and then he left silently. Feng Yi gazed towards the distant starry sky and spoke softly. "It's going to be a tough battle." As soon as he finished speaking, he'd vanished. After the bridge suddenly exploded, Yi Xian and Xueqi appeared on the surface of a river. It was dark around them, and the water was murky. Not far in front of them stood an old woman. The old woman was boiling soup. The fragrance of the soup was extremely alluring. Yi Xian looked at the old woman. "Senior, you are?" The old woman scooped a bowl of soup, and then she looked at Yi Xian and Xueqi, and she grinned. "Have a bowl of soup." Her smile was somewhat terrifying. Yi Xian glanced at the bowl of soup, and he shook his head. "No, I won't drink it." The old woman suddenly appeared in front of Xueqi and Yi Xian, and she looked at them. "Drink this soup, and forget about your past life, and forget about this life. How great is that?" As she spoke, she passed the soup to Xueqi. Xueqi looked at the bowl of soup, and at this moment, a scene suddenly appeared in the soup. In a turbid world, a woman in a plain dress stood quietly on top of the clouds. She looked down at the bottom of the clouds with an expressionless face. Not far away from her right stood another woman. The woman stared at the woman in the plain dress in rage. "You're crazy." The woman in the plain dress suddenly placed her sword on the woman's forehead, and her expression was ferocious. "Crazy? Have you forgotten how he died?" As her voice landed, the sword stabbed in half an inch. The woman's blood flowed out. The woman stared at the woman in the plain dress. "This isn't what he wants to see." The woman in the plain dress looked at the woman in the plain dress, and her expression became more and more ferocious. "Then let him tell me personally." Other than him, no one can stop me. As her voice landed, she turned around and left.
Behind her, the woman stared at the woman in the plain dress. This four-dimensional universe has countless living beings, you. In the distance, the woman in the plain dress didn't even turn her head. This four-dimensional universe isn't as important as a strand of his hair.
Chapter 659. Above the clouds, it suddenly became silent. The woman stood there quietly and didn't speak for a long time.
After a long time, the woman lowered her head. No one can stop her. At this moment, a voice rang out. Don't go.
She will kill you.
The woman said softly. He said that if we have the ability, we must protect the weak.
That voice was silent.
The woman looked below the clouds, her eyes slowly becoming a little dazed. I also want him to live. On the river, the scene stopped. In front of Seven, the old woman's expression became extremely solemn. That woman in the plain dress.
I have never seen such a strong swordsman.
As she said that, she looked towards Seven. Drink this soup and end the karma of your past life. Seven asked. Why should I end it? The old woman smiled. Why not end it?
Seven looked at the old woman. My past life is my past life. I am me. I don't care about my past life and I won't forget my past life. I am Seven. I am me.
The old woman looked at Seven and was about to speak.
Suddenly, her expression changed. She grabbed Seven's right hand and closed her eyes.
After a moment, she opened them. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. You actually have the fate of the human king, Seven frowned. Human king? The old woman looked at Seven deeply. Unbelievable, after so many years, someone with the fate of the human king has actually appeared.
At the side, Yi Xian suddenly asked, What is human king?
The old woman looked at Yi Xian. It is the king of the human race, on par with Tendo, on par with the ancient gods.
Yi Xian asked, Emperor.
The old woman suddenly raged. What emperor?
An emperor is called the son of heaven. He is chosen by the heavens.
Human king is the king of the human race. He is not restricted by the heavens and earth, on par with the heavens and earth, on par with the ancient gods. Do you understand?
Yi Xian looked at the old woman. Senior, don't be agitated, I am just asking.
The old woman slowly closed her eyes. Sad. The human race has actually forgotten the human king of the past.
Yi Xian. At this time the old woman looked at Yi Xian. If she doesn't drink, will you? Yi Xian asked. Can I see the past life in this soup?
The old woman said. Sure.
Yi Xian hurriedly said, Let me see what I was like in my previous life. The old woman looked at Yi Xian. She handed the bowl to Yi Xian. Just as Yi Xian looked at it, the bowl of soup suddenly exploded. Bang! The old woman instantly retreated 1,000 feet. Yi Xian was speechless. Seven blinked and looked at Yi Xian curiously.
In the distance, the old woman's expression was extremely ugly.
How is this possible? With that, she appeared in front of Yi Xian again. She glared at Yi Xian. Who were you in your past life?
Yi Xian helplessly said, What are you asking? How would I know who I was in my past life?
With that, he said seriously, however, I feel that I was definitely a very powerful existence in my past life. I have no doubt about this. The old woman looked at Yi Xian. After a moment, she suddenly took out an ancient mirror and handed it to Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at the ancient mirror. The mirror rippled like water. After a moment, the mirror suddenly shook violently. Soon, a gray world appeared in the mirror. At this time, the mirror suddenly exploded. The old woman retreated again. Yi Xian. In the distance, the old woman's expression was extremely ugly.
Impossible, absolutely impossible. With that, she looked at Yi Xian.
Even if you are the reincarnation of a human king, you can't destroy this rebirth mirror. Yi Xian thought for a moment.
Then he said, Perhaps, I am even more powerful than a human king. The old woman said angrily, Bull ****. In the history of the human race in the four-dimensional universe, human king is the strongest person.
You. With that, she seemed to think of something. Her pupils suddenly shrank. You are not from the four-dimensional universe. Yi Xian was a little helpless. I don't know either.
The old woman stared at Yi Xian.
In the past, King Shi came into contact with people from the five-dimensional universe.
Yi Xian was slightly stunned. People who came into contact with people from the five-dimensional universe? The old woman nodded.
King Shi. With that she paused for a moment.
Then she said, "Both of you are not simple."
Yi Xian hesitated for a moment.
Then he said, "Senior, do you have any inheritance to pass down?"
The old woman looked at Yi Xian.
Yi Xian said seriously, "If Senior needs it, I will definitely not refuse."
Xueqi suddenly pulled on Yi Xian's sleeve.
"Restrain yourself."
Yi Xian. The old woman glanced at Yi Xian. "Do you know who I am?"
Yi Xian shook his head.
"Senior, you are?"
The old woman turned around and pointed to a pitch-black door not far away. And above the door, there were two big black words. Hell.
Hell. Yi Xian frowned. "What is that?"
The old woman said calmly. In the past, not only did King Shi establish human civilization and various human systems, but he also established the reincarnation system. When humans die of old age or when their lifespan is exhausted, their souls will enter a place.
Yi Xian asked. "Hell."
The old woman nodded.
"After entering hell, you can drink the rebirth soup to end your past life and forget about this life. Then you can cultivate the next life."
Later, when the last human king was killed, many things also disappeared, including this reincarnation system. With that, she looked at Yi Xian.
"Enter this door and you can obtain the inheritance."
Yi Xian hesitated and then asked, "Is it dangerous?"
The old woman looked at Yi Xian. "Guess."
Yi Xian. At this moment, the old woman looked at Xueqi. "If you control this hell, you can use it to establish the reincarnation system." It was obvious that she wanted Xueqi to inherit this hell. This was because this hell was created by a human king. Xueqi's inheritance was the best.
Xueqi looked at the door. "Reincarnation system?"
The old woman nodded. "There are 18 evil souls inside.
They can all be used by you."
Xueqi looked at Yi Xian.
"Do you want it?"
Yi Xian looked at the old woman.
"No, I don't want it." With that, he took out the world prison pagoda and sighed. "Hayes, I am only interested in the inheritance of the fifth dimension. I am not interested in anything else." The old woman looked at the world prison pagoda in Yi Xian's hands.
Her expression was solemn.
"Fifth dimension item," Yi Xian said calmly. "It is just a pagoda. It is not worth mentioning. It is not worth mentioning." With that, he kept the world prison pagoda. The old woman looked at Yi Xian. Then, she looked at Xueqi.
"Go in."
Xueqi nodded. She walked through the door. Only Yi Xian and the old woman were left. The old woman looked at Yi Xian. "I have something that is suitable for you. But unfortunately, you said that you are only interested in fifth dimension items." Hayes, Yi Xian. Roughly 2 hours later, Xueqi walked out. There was a blood-red mark on her forehead. The old woman looked at Xueqi. "You succeeded?" Xueqi nodded. The old woman asked.
"They didn't make things difficult for you?"
Xueqi looked at the old woman. She shook her head.
"They seemed happy."
The old woman nodded. "That's true.
There won't be anyone better than you."
Xueqi looked at the old woman. "Are you coming with me?" The old woman shook her head. "I want to stay here. I don't want to care about the outside world." Xueqi nodded. She looked at Yi Xian.
"Let's go."
Yi Xian nodded. The two of them were about to leave.
At this moment, the old woman suddenly said, "Young man."
Yi Xian turned to look at the old woman. She pointed with her finger. A black stone appeared in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian did not understand.
"This is,"
the old woman said, "Soul stone. If you embed this stone on your sword, it can increase its rank by at least 2 levels. Not only that, this thing is the nemesis of all souls. This soul does not only refer to the souls of humans, but also the souls of all living beings in the four-dimensional universe. Apart from that, it can also nourish your soul. All soul attacks and soul techniques are useless against you. Of course, this doesn't mean that you are invincible. If you meet some special experts like..."
Her expression became solemn. "For example, that girl in the plain dress."
In front of such people, all treasures are useless. Yi Xian bowed. "Thank you." The old woman looked at Xueqi.
"This fourth dimension is no longer the human king era.
Your appearance represents an anomaly. I'm afraid there will be many troubles in the future. Xueqi asked.
What is there to be afraid of?
The old woman looked at Xueqi for a long time. Finally, she nodded. You have the fate of a human king. You can go and find those fellows from the human king era. I believe that many of them are still alive. Xueqi asked. Are they strong? The old woman nodded. Those who are still alive are either very weak or extremely strong. Xueqi nodded. I understand. The old woman looked at Xueqi. Take care. Xueqi and Yixian turned and left.
In the field, the old woman was silent for a long time.
Finally, she turned and walked into the distance. Not long later, she completely disappeared into the distance. Yixian and Xueqi returned to the starry sky. At this moment, the demon lord's voice suddenly rang in Yixian's mind.
That person just now was very strong.
Yixian asked in a deep voice. How strong?
The demon lord said. Slightly weaker than me. Yixian. The demon lord continued.
Unfortunately, her body is gone. Moreover, her soul is incomplete. She should have been destroyed by someone. Otherwise, at her peak, she should be a peerless expert. Yixian said, Senior, do you know about the human king era?
The demon lord said. I've heard a little.
However, it's just a little. I don't know much. If I'm not wrong, the history of that era should have been erased by someone or some force. Yixian nodded slightly. Just as he was about to speak, Xueqi suddenly frowned and his expression turned cold. Yixian looked at Xueqi. Xueqi said, Something has happened in the chaotic universe. P.S. Do you have any votes to vote for? If you do, please look at me. I will accept your votes without hesitation. Chapter 660. The Starry Sky of the Chaotic Universe. Shangguan looked up at the starry sky, where tens of thousands of people stood. The army. The army from the black-yellow great world. The person in the lead was a middle-aged man. This person was Fang Yi. Behind him was the expeditionary army from the black-yellow great world. The expeditionary army was the army used by the black-yellow great world to expand their territory. The purpose of this army was to search for new universes and conquer them. There was no doubt about the strength of this army. Especially those who survived, it could be said that all of them were battle-hardened and had extremely rich combat experience. Beside Shangguan were Tendo and Yen Dao. Behind them were Xueqi's guards, the Divine Martial Army, and the Paladin Regiment. There weren't many people, only 5,000 in total. But the aura of these 5,000 people was extremely strong. In terms of individual strength, these 5,000 people did not lose to the expeditionary army from the black-yellow great world at all. Yen Dao asked, Is there any news of His Majesty? Shangguan shook her head. Too far, I can't contact him. Yen Dao looked up at the starry sky. How should we deal with him? Shangguan suddenly floated out and soon arrived 100 zhang away from Fang Yi. Behind Shangguan there were 3 more people besides Yen Dao. They were Xiang Qing, Xiang Yu, and Tendo. Fang Yi sized up Shangguan You have 2 choices, surrender or die. Shangguan smiled. His Majesty once said that the Divine Kingdom will never bow to anyone. Fang Yi looked at Shangguan That's because you didn't meet me. As soon as he finished speaking, he disappeared. In the instant that Fang Yi disappeared, Xiang Qing and the other 2 behind Shangguan also disappeared. Rumble. The starry sky shook violently and Yen Dao and the other 2 retreated nearly 1,000 zhang. Blood slowly flowed out from the corners of their mouths. Fang Yi appeared in front of Shangguan but at this moment, a figure suddenly charged at Fang Yi. Fang Yi frowned, turned around, and punched. Boom. The starry sky shook. A middle-aged man stood not far from Fang Yi. Zhou Yafu. Fang Yi glanced at Zhou Yafu and said, I never thought there would be a transcendent martial god in this universe. Zhou Yafu looked at Fang Yi. I've heard of your Xianhuang great world. I've heard that wherever you go, you leave nothing behind. Is that true? Fang Yi smiled. It's true. Zhou Yafu stared fixedly at Fang Yi.
It seems you'll have to stop here in the Chaos Verse. Feng Yi laughed. Do you know how many cosmoses we've encountered along the way? There were quite a few who were even more powerful than your Chaos Verse, but in the end, they all disappeared. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished.
In the distance, Zhou Yafu's pupils constricted and he punched out. Rumble! Along with an explosion, Zhou Yafu was instantly pushed back by over 10 kilometers. Feng Yi coldly looked at Zhou Yafu.
You're overestimating yourself. As soon as he finished speaking, he raised his hands in the air.
In an instant, the surrounding space began to surge violently like boiling water. In the distance, Zhou Yafu's eyes were cold.
He slowly clenched his right hand and a powerful force gathered in his fist.
After a moment of silence, Zhou Yafu suddenly disappeared. Rumble! In the battlefield, a powerful force tore through space and headed straight for Feng Yi. A hint of disdain appeared on Feng Yi's face as he clasped his hands together. Rumble! The surrounding space suddenly trembled. In an instant, Zhou Yafu was directly sent flying. This time, he flew for over 10 kilometers. Seeing this scene, Shangguan Xianer's face sank slightly. She knew that only Shao Qi and Yi Xian could deal with this Feng Yi. Shao Qi was extremely strong. Yi Xian had many tricks up his sleeves, and there was also Tower. But now, both of them were not here. How could they resist Feng Yi? In the air, Feng Yi turned to look at Shangguan Xianer. He was about to make a move when a woman suddenly appeared in front of Shangguan Xianer. Mu Nanji. Mu Nanji sized up Feng Yi.
You're not a God state expert.
Feng Yi was expressionless. I have to say, the quality of experts in this chaos verse is quite good. Mu Nanji smiled.
Do you know that little girl?
Feng Yi asked. Divine Kingdom's Divine Lord? Mu Nanji nodded.
Feng Yi said indifferently. Why?
Mu Nanji smiled.
You will regret looking down on her.
Feng Yi shook his head. I have never looked down on her.
Otherwise I would not have come to this chaos verse.
Mu Nanji's eyes narrowed.
Because she is not here, that is why you are here.
Feng Yi looked at Mu Nanji. Kill. Do not underestimate the enemy. As his voice fell, the expeditionary army behind him rushed out. Although there were only tens of thousands of them, their aura was like a million-strong army. Below, Shangguan Xianer said softly, Protect my divine kingdom. Protect my divine kingdom. Behind Shangguan Xianer, countless experts roared. In the next moment, everyone rushed towards the depths of the starry sky. In addition to the divine guards and personal guards, there was also the Divine Kingdom's Paladin Regiment and the 9th Legion. In addition, the experts of the Tang clan and the Monster clan were also there. Not only these two clans' experts, but the Divine Martial Cities Wu Yuan and Sword Sex experts were also there. Leading them was Lan Xiao. As for Mu Nanji and Zhou Yafu, as well as the Divine Kingdom's Yan Dao and the other experts, they were restraining Feng Yi. Not long after, Feng Yi's expression gradually turned ugly.
This was because he discovered that the expeditionary army was actually being suppressed by the experts of the Chaos Verse.
Especially the Divine Kingdom's genius, Lan Xiao, and the others. In front of the expeditionary army, they were practically invincible. But this time, the experts of the Divine Kingdom's divine list were all present. Especially the number one on the divine list, Yuan Yi. Her secret techniques were simply destructive in this kind of group battle. In the starry sky, Feng Yi's expression darkened.
He discovered that it was not that he had underestimated the Divine Kingdom's ruler, but that he had underestimated the Divine Kingdom's low-end strength. It should be said that he had greatly underestimated them.
After a moment of silence, Feng Yi suddenly opened his right hand. A golden arrow shot into the sky, and in the blink of an eye, it disappeared into the depths of the starry sky. Seeing this scene, Shangguan Xianer and the others' expressions darkened. Needless to say, Feng Yi must be calling for help. Shangguan Xianer turned her head.
Have the hidden guards go to the depths of the starry sky. In the dark, a black-robed man with a blade quietly retreated.
Shangguan Xianer looked into the depths of the starry sky and said softly, Your Majesty, you have to hurry back. In the depths of the distant starry sky, Yi Xian and Shao Qi sat on the Imperial starship and traveled at top speed. The Imperial starship's speed had reached its limit. On the bow of the Imperial starship, Xueqi stood quietly. Not far behind her, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground, the soul-suppressing sword floating in front of him. Fuse. At this moment, he was fusing the soul stone with the soul-suppressing sword. This was not a simple matter. Fortunately, the soul-suppressing sword and the soul stone had the same attribute. It just needed to absorb a lot of spiritual energy, and he needed to mediate it. Time passed bit by bit, and the soul stone and the soul-suppressing sword fused more and more. At this moment, the soul-suppressing sword's aura also became stronger and stronger. At this moment, Little Soul said excitedly, "Little Master, this soul stone is really good. If I fuse with it, I can easily surpass the God realm." Yi Xian smiled. "What is above the God realm?" Little Soul kept silent for a moment and then said, "End realm." Yi Xian frowned. "End realm." Little Soul said, "Yes, it means to reach our own limits. The executing heaven sword in Little Master's hand should be the peak of the end realm. It has reached its own limit, and if it wants to break through again, it might need Little Master's help." Yi Xian asked, "What do you need me to do?" Little Soul said, "The sword is extraordinary because of the person. If it wants to reach the legendary mortal sword, it will depend on Little Master's own sword path. Me too, if I want to reach the legendary mortal sword level, I will need Little Master's help. So, I will work hard with Little Master in the future." Yi Xian smiled. "Let's work hard together." The soul-suppressing sword continued to fuse with the soul stone. About 2 hours later, the soul-suppressing sword suddenly trembled violently, and a powerful aura swept out from the soul-suppressing sword. As soon as this aura appeared, the surrounding space immediately boiled violently. At this moment Seven, who was not far away, suddenly said, "Look!" Yi Xian got up and walked beside Seven. He raised his head and looked into the distance. In the distance, a bunch of soldiers wearing black armor and holding spears were flying through the air. Just at this moment, Seven suddenly appeared in front of the bunch of soldiers, and they stopped right away. The leader stared at Seven. "Who are you?" Xueqi sized up the general. "Are you people from the black-yellow great world?" The leader squinted. "How did you know?" Seven asked, "You want to head to the chaotic universe?" The leader frowned. "How did you know? Who are you?" Seven looked at Yi Xian. "You head back first, I will block them." Yi Xian looked at the leader. The leader's aura was really strong, and he was at least a God realm expert. More importantly, there were 100 people behind him, and there were at least 10 God realm experts and 30 Emperor realm experts. Moreover, their auras were very strong, not something an ordinary Emperor realm expert could compare to. Clearly, these were not ordinary people. Yi Xian said, "Together." Seven shook her head. "In case there are any changes to the chaotic universe, you head first, I will follow." Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then nodded, "Be careful." With that, he turned and disappeared into the distant stars. In front of Seven, the leader stared at her. "Do you know what you are doing?" Seven didn't waste any time. She opened her right hand and turned into a sword light that shot out. Wang! As the sword chime rang out, bloody heads flew out one after another in the distance. Roughly an hour later, Seven sheathed her sword, and in front of her was a ground of corpses. Seven looked coldly at the corpses, and turned to leave. But at this moment, her expression changed. Yi Xian pushed his speed to the limit, and with his current speed, he could reach the chaotic universe in an hour at most. Roughly an hour later, the Fiend Lord's voice suddenly rang out. "Danger!" Yi Xian stopped. As soon as he stopped, his glabella was pierced through. Chapter 661. Sir. As soon as Yi Xian stopped, a sword pierced through his forehead. At this moment, Yi Xian was extremely shocked. The person who made the move was actually this fast. Without much thought, the moment the sword pierced through his forehead, he instinctively turned around and slashed down. Chi! The sword slashed down, but it cut through the air. Because there was nothing in front of him. Disappeared. Yi Xian narrowed his eyes. He rubbed his forehead, and the sword there had disappeared. He had to admit that he was really shocked just now. If the opponent hadn't been holding a sword, the consequences would have been unthinkable. At this moment, the Demon Lord's voice suddenly sounded. "The opponent's concealment technique is quite special. Be careful. Yi Xian asked, Senior, do you know the opponent's location? The Demon Lord said, I do, but do you really need me to tell you? Yi Xian was silent. He naturally knew what the Demon Lord meant. If he needed the Demon Lord's help for everything, he would become more and more dependent on the Demon Lord. The Demon Lord said, It's not good for me to expose myself now. Otherwise, it won't be good for you. Yi Xian asked, Why? The Demon Lord said, Some special reasons. From now on, I will be in seclusion for a period of time. I hope that when I wake up, you will still be alive. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. The Demon Lord was in seclusion again. Actually, he was still a little confused, wondering why the Demon Lord didn't leave the prison pagoda. With the Demon Lord's strength, he could totally leave the prison pagoda. Without thinking too much, Yi Xian continued forward. About 15 minutes later, Yi Xian suddenly stopped. The space Dao Law appeared between his brows. The next moment, the space around him trembled violently. An instant later, Yi Xian slashed to the right. Chi! A ray of sword light tore through space. 1,000 feet away, a figure suddenly appeared. As Yi Xian's sword slashed down, the figure retreated rapidly. Yi Xian looked coldly at the figure. From the figure, it should be a woman. A female assassin. However, the other party was dressed in black and wore a conical bamboo hat, making it impossible to see his true appearance. Yi Xian sized up the female assassin. Black Yellow Great World? The woman didn't say anything and quietly disappeared. The moment the woman disappeared, Yi Xian also disappeared. In terms of concealment techniques, Yi Xian, would not lose to anyone. Yi Xian didn't bother with the assassin. Right now, his top priority was to return to the Chaosverse as quickly as possible. The Chaosverse. The battle in the starry sky of the Chaosverse was extremely intense. Although the expeditionary army from the Xianhuang Great World had been suppressed by the geniuses and experts of the Divine Kingdom, they were still extremely powerful. The experts of the Chaosverse wouldn't be able to wipe them out in a short period of time. Moreover, there were also some particularly outstanding experts in the expeditionary army. Fight! The battle between the two sides had reached its climax. In the air, Feng Yi coldly looked down. Not far in front of him were Mu Nanji and Zhou Yafu, as well as the Divine Kingdom's Yen Dao and other super experts. In a one-on-one fight, there was no one in the entire Chaosverse who was a match for Feng Yi. In the distance, Yen Dao, who was next to Shangguan Xianer, suddenly said, Let them fight. Shangguan Xianer shook her head. These people aren't worthy of them fighting. Yen Dao nodded. At this moment, Feng Yi suddenly disappeared. Yen Dao drew his sword and slashed. Mu Nanji and the others also attacked together. Rumble! In the starry sky, an explosion suddenly sounded, and an instant later, Feng Yi returned to his original position. At this moment, Feng Ye's face was quite gloomy. Although he was stronger than the people of the Chaosverse, he couldn't do anything to these people in front of him if they joined forces. After a while, Feng Yi turned and looked into the depths of the starry sky. He frowned slightly. The reinforcements hadn't arrived yet. Did something happen? At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared beside Feng Yi. The old man said in a low voice, There's an accident. Feng Ye's eyes narrowed slightly. He looked at Shangguan Xianer and the others. I underestimated you. Haha. At this moment, a loud laugh suddenly came from the side. Feng Yi turned and looked. Not far from him, the space suddenly cracked, and then a middle-aged man walked out. Seeing this middle-aged man, Feng Ye's face darkened. The commander of the Northern Army, Xiao Biewu. Xiao Biewu looked at Feng Yi and said with a smile, Brother Feng, it seems you can't handle it. Feng Ye's face was expressionless. Xiao Biewu, I heard that 100 people of your Northern Army were wiped out? Xiao Biewu's eyes narrowed slightly. You're quite well informed. Feng Yi said with a smile, Whether it's on my side or on your side, there's no way to devour this Chaosverse. Cooperation? Xiao Biewu said with a smile, Sure, but my goal is Yi Xian and Divine Martial City. Feng Yi stared at Xiao Biewu. You want to take that treasure for yourself? Xiao Biewu said with a smile, Brother Feng, the mission of your expeditionary army is to conquer the universe. That treasure is not part of your mission. Of course, if you want it, It's not impossible. But it's a bit too late to discuss this now. Once we get it, we can discuss its ownership. How about it?
Feng Yi was silent for a moment, then nodded. Sure. Xiao Biawu laughed and then said, You hold them back.
As he spoke, he looked down at Enlonxiu. This person should be Yi Xian's confidant. I'm very curious if Yi Xian will choose that treasure or his confidant when he returns. Nearby, Shangguan Xian suddenly said, Your Excellency, it's best not to touch his family. Xiao Biawu looked at Shangguan Xian. Why? Shangguan Xian looked straight at Xiao Biawu. Our city lord Yi is usually carefree and likes to swindle people. He looks harmless, but he'll be very angry if anyone touches his family. Angry? Xiao Biawu said with a smile. I like to see my enemies angry. The angrier they are, the happier I am. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished. Down below, the expression of Enlonxiu, who was fighting someone, suddenly changed. She swiftly raised her head and stabbed out with her spear. Rumble! Enlonxiu instantly retreated a few hundred meters in a single stab. Xiao Biawu sized up Enlonxiu and said softly, Your strength isn't bad. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly charged forward. Rumble! The space in the surroundings trembled violently like an earthquake was occurring, and it was extremely shocking. Shangguan Xian'er's expression changed when she saw this scene. Help her. Enlonxiu was extremely monstrous, but she was absolutely unable to go against Xiao Biawu. After all, Xiao Biawu was an expert above the god rank realm. Mu Nanji and the others were about to attack, but Feng Yi forcefully stopped them. In the distance, bang! Along with an explosion, Enlonxiu was blasted flying once more. As soon as she stopped, a wisp of blood slowly seeped out from the corner of Enlonxiu's mouth. Enlonxiu wiped off the blood on the corner of her mouth. In the next moment, she suddenly charged forward swiftly and stabbed her spear forward. This spear strike was like a thunderclap that flashed by. A wisp of disdain suffused the corners of Xiao Biawu's mouth as he clenched his right hand into a fist and smashed it forward. Bang! This strike forcefully stopped Enlonxiu's spear strike. At the same time, he suddenly appeared in front of Enlonxiu, and then he smashed his fist towards her face. Enlonxiu's eyes narrowed slightly, and then she flashed forward and smashed her fist forward. She couldn't retreat at all. Once she did, then the situation she was in would become even worse. Moreover, Xiao Biawu's speed far surpassed her, so she couldn't retreat as well. In next to no time, Enlonxiu's fist smashed onto Xiao Biawu's fist. Bang! Enlonxiu was instantly blasted flying. At the same time, her entire right arm was blasted into pieces. After Enlonxiu stopped moving, blood was flowing from the corner of her mouth. Xiao Biawu gazed at Enlonxiu and said with a smile, Needless to say, I like this feeling. The feeling of the strong bullying the weak. Do you know why? Because in this way, I can control the lives of others at will. As he spoke, he glanced at the members of Divine Martial City and said, I'll annihilate everyone related to Yi Xian in this world, and then I'll hang your heads in the starry sky. I really want to see his furious appearance. When he spoke up to here, he suddenly turned around to look at Enlonxiu and smiled. The heavens are benevolent, so I can let you live. However, you have to pay a price. Do you understand what I mean? Enlonxiu wiped off the blood on the corner of her mouth with her left hand, and then she slowly clenched it. Meanwhile, Xiao Biawu said, You're his lover. If you betray him and get involved with another man in front of him, then don't you think he would be furious? Ha ha ha. Enlonxiu looked Xiao Biawu in the eyes and said, Did he sleep with your wife? Xiao Biawu's eyes narrowed slightly. Enlonxiu continued, Otherwise, why do you hate him so much? Xiao Biawu gazed at Enlonxiu and smiled. I like women who are stubborn the most. Because only in this way can it feel good to subdue them. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly vanished. In the distance, Enlonxiu suddenly clenched her left hand tightly, and then she smashed her fist forward. Rumble! The space in the surroundings trembled violently, and then Enlonxiu was blasted flying once more. This time, her left hand had warped and warped. The gap in their cultivations was too huge. Enlonxiu raised her head and looked towards the depths of the starry sky while traces of ripples arose in her eyes. She seemed to be recalling the past. All those years ago in Pine City. They'd met at the beginning of that year. The white-clothed woman, the young and inexperienced young man. Did she like him? She didn't know. All she knew was that she had a good impression of him when they first met. Even though she didn't know when he'd gradually become shameless, but he hadn't been like this all those years ago. At that time, perhaps it was because his younger sister was ill, but he'd lived a very oppressive life. Later on, when his younger sister recovered from her illness, his skin grew thicker and thicker, and it was impossible to stop. Fortunately, his heart had never changed. He was still that young man, but his skin was much thicker than it was in the past. Thinking back to that time in the martial courtyard, when he confessed to her, Anlancio slowly closed her eyes. It was enough. Getting to know each other and getting to know each other was enough. When she thought up to here, the profound energy within Anlancio's body started to surge. In the distance, Xiao Biewu walked towards Anlancio while a wisp of a smile hung on the corners of his mouth. Want to commit suicide? You might not get what you want. I'll subdue you. Ha ha ha. As he spoke, he was about to attack. However, right at this moment, a wave of savage laughter suddenly resounded from afar. Subdue my woman? Who the fuck do you think you are? Xiao Biewu stopped and turned around to look. Everyone present also looked towards the starry sky. In that starry sky, a swordsman man was rushing towards them like a madman. At the same time, the swordsman man's voice resounded through the starry sky like thunder. 1. Sword. Infinite. P.S. Thank you, Brother Erday, for becoming the Alliance Master. Pleasantly surprised. I've been too busy lately, so I haven't been reading the book review section. Sorry. As for the issue of updating, once I'm done with my work for the next few days, I'll do it again. You all know that I've never let you down. Finally, I'd like to thank all the readers who gave me gifts and votes, as well as the readers who subscribed. After the update, I'll send out a red packet of 20,000 cross-rank coins. Only the readers who subscribe to this book will be able to receive it. Everyone, remember to receive it. It's just a small token of my appreciation, so please accept it. After you receive it, everyone, make an appearance. Don't type. This is making an appearance. One shouldn't be too shameless. Chapter 662. As soon as the final word was spoken, OM, a sword howl suddenly shot into the sky. At this moment, practically the entire chaotic universe could hear this sword howl. Not only that, but as soon as this sword hum rang out, all of the swords in the entire Chaosverse began to tremble violently, resonating with it. A ray of light flashed through the starry sky like a shooting star. The expressions of everyone in the starry sky changed when they saw it. It should be described as terror. All the experts present revealed expressions of terror. This sword strike made all of them feel the aura of death. It was especially so for Xiao Biewu. He could smell the scent of death the moment he saw the sword light. Death. At this moment, his face was pale as a sheet. Because a voice in the depths of his heart was telling him that he would definitely die. However, he didn't just stand there and wait for death. He roared furiously, circulated all the profound energy within his body, and executed his strongest attack. However, his strongest attack seemed so insignificant in the face of the sword light. Moreover, his energy vanished without a trace when it was still 3 kilometers away from the ray of light. That attack. It disregarded everything. An instant later, Xiao Biewu's figure stiffened on the spot, and then he started to vanish bit by bit. Meanwhile, a young swordsman appeared in front of him. It was Yi Xian. Xiao Biewu gazed at Yi Xian with a bewildered expression. What sword technique was that? It was. He hadn't even finished speaking when he vanished without a trace. He didn't just vanish. His soul, karma, fate, and everything else had vanished as well. Simply speaking, he'd been completely obliterated by that attack. The surroundings were deathly silent. Everyone was dumbstruck. A single attack. That attack had instantly annihilated Xiao Biewu, who was at the God rank realm. Yi Xian paid no attention to them. He turned around and walked over to Anlancio. Anlancio had stopped detonating herself. Yi Xian's face gradually warped when he saw Anlancio's state, and the executing heaven sword in his hand started to tremble violently. Anlancio spoke softly. I'm fine. Yi Xian suddenly turned around. Bang! A ray of red light shot into the sky from within him. Bloodline activation. Almost instantly, Yi Xian's hair turned blood red. Yi Xian looked at Feng Yi and said savagely, "One sword?" Feng Ye's expression changed drastically when he heard this, and he immediately said, "Retreat." With that, he turned around and left. At this time, Yi Xian suddenly rushed out. Buzz! A blood-red ray of light flashed through the battlefield. Kill! In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly roared. His voice was like that of a wild beast. Yi Xian charged directly into the midst of the expeditionary army. Streaks of blood-red sword light swept out in all directions like a dense rainstorm. Everywhere it passed, corpses were strewn everywhere. At the end of the starry sky, Feng Yi suddenly stopped and turned to look at where Yi Xian was. At this moment, Yi Xian was madly chasing after his expeditionary army. The expeditionary army's speed was not as fast as Yi Xian. Moreover, Yi Xian's sword was too sharp, and a bloody head would fall with every slash. Feng Yi was about to attack when an old man beside him suddenly said, "General, you can't die. You have to think about the bigger picture." Feng Yi stared fixedly at Yi Xian, and the murderous intent in his eyes was almost tangible. The old man said solemnly, "General, this person cannot be defeated. Please think about the bigger picture." Feng Yi looked at Yi Xian, who was killing madly in the distance. "Yi Xian, my black-yellow great world will remember you." In the distance, Yi Xian suddenly raised his head and looked at Feng Yi with a ferocious expression. "Please kill me." Feng Yi glanced coldly at Yi Xian, then turned around and left. Behind him, miserable screams rang out incessantly. A massacre. After the activation of his bloodline, Yi Xian's combat strength could be said to have increased by several levels. In addition, he held the executing heaven sword in his hand. Therefore, wherever he passed, almost no one could stop him. In addition, the experts of God Nation were also attacking. Therefore, in a short while, the expeditionary army was completely wiped out. All of them were beheaded. However, Feng Yi and the few people in the lead had already escaped. In the starry sky, Yi Xian stood quietly. Around him, an extremely powerful aura constantly shook the surroundings. Bloodline power. Yi Xian's eyes were closed, and his right hand tightly grasped the sword in his hand, which was trembling. Suppress. He was suppressing the bloodline power in his body. In fact, after the bloodline power was activated, he had never completely released its power. He did not dare to release it completely, because he knew that if he continued to release it, he might lose himself. The power of this bloodline was simply too terrifying. About half an hour later, Yi Xian opened his eyes. At this time, he had already returned to normal. After recovering, Yi Xian turned around and walked in front of Enlancio. He opened his right hand, and a white jade bottle appeared in front of Enlancio. Enlancio did not refuse. She opened the jade bottle and swallowed 2 thumb-sized medicinal pills. As soon as the medicinal pills enter her body, the injuries on Enlancio's body began to recover at an extremely fast speed. A hint of surprise flashed in Enlancio's eyes. She looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian was also a little shocked in his heart. He did not expect the effect of this medicinal pill to be so good. This was a good thing. At this time, Shangguan Xianer and the others came to Yi Xian's side. Shangguan Xianer bowed slightly to Yi Xian. "City Lord Yi, where is His Majesty?" At this time, when God Nation and others looked at Yi Xian, there was a trace of respect in their eyes compared to before. Yi Xian glanced around. "Little Seven hasn't returned yet?" Shangguan Xianer's face sank. "Isn't His Majesty with you?" Yi Xian looked towards the depths of the starry sky. He fell silent for a moment before he said, "Something is slightly unusual. I'll go take a look." As soon as he finished speaking, he transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the distance. Shangguan Xianer and the other experts hurriedly followed after him. 2 hours later, Yi Xian arrived at the place where he and Little Seven had parted ways. At this moment, the space here had turned pitch black. The space within a radius of 1,000,000 zhang had been destroyed. Yi Xian's face sank when he saw this scene. Did something happen to Little Seven? The faces of the Divine Nation experts who had come with Yi Xian also darkened. Right at this moment, a sword suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. Little Seven's sword. Yi Xian grabbed Little Seven's sword, and the sword trembled slightly as if it was saying something.
Yi Xian hurriedly said, Xiao Ling, what is it saying?
Xiao Ling appeared by Yi Xian's side, and she glanced at the sword. After a moment, she looked at Yi Xian. It said that the little girl wants you to temporarily take over the position of emperor. Temporarily take over the position of emperor. The experts of the Divine Kingdom were stunned when they heard this. Temporarily take over the position of emperor? Meanwhile, Shangguan Xian grabbed Little Seven's sword. Where is His Majesty? The sword trembled slightly. Shangguan Xian turned to look at Xiao Ling and Xiao Ling blinked and said, Something happened. Shangguan Xian asked again, What happened? The sword swayed left and right. Xiao Ling said, It doesn't know, but something happened. Because that big sister threw it out. Shangguan Xian's face instantly turned pale like a sheet of paper. Obviously, Little Seven had definitely encountered something, and that was why it had thrown the sword out. What exactly was it? Xianhuang Great World? After a moment of silence, Shangguan Xian turned and shouted, Let the entire Tianji sect follow His Majesty's path. Yes. An expert of the Divine Kingdom left quietly. At the scene, the experts of the Divine Kingdom had ugly expressions. Little Seven. She was the backbone of the Divine Kingdom. Yi Xian's eyes slowly closed. Senior, are you there? The Demon Lord did not respond. Obviously, the Demon Lord was already in closed-door cultivation. Yi Xian's face sank, and he looked into the distance, his eyes filled with confusion. With Little Seven's strength, ordinary people would not be able to do anything to her. What exactly had happened to her? At this moment, a white-robed elder came to Shangguan Xian's side. This person was Tianji sect's sect head. Shangguan Xian looked at Tianji sect's sect head. How is it? Tianji sect's sect head shook his head. There's no news. Shangguan Xian frowned. What do you mean? Tianji sect's sect head said solemnly. There are 3 possibilities. First, His Majesty is too far away from here, and we can't sense him. Second, His Majesty is being forcefully concealed. Third, His Majesty has fallen. Shangguan Xian suddenly shouted. How could he have fallen? Tianji sect's sect head sighed, and did not speak. At this moment, Little Seven's sword suddenly trembled, and a golden seal floated out of the sword. This seal floated in front of Yi Xian. Godlord seal. Seeing this scene, the experts of the Divine Kingdom were silent. Obviously, Little Seven wanted Yi Xian to temporarily take over the position of God Nation King. The experts of the Divine Kingdom were silent. Yi Xian suddenly turned and left. Seeing this scene, everyone looked at each other in dismay. After Yi Xian left, he came to a starry sky. The next moment, the space Dao law between his eyebrows suddenly appeared. 100 feet to his right, a shadow floated. This person was the female assassin that had tried to assassinate him earlier. The female assassin wore a bamboo hat, and her appearance could not be seen clearly. In her left hand, she held a sword that looked like a fishbone. Yi Xian looked at the female assassin. Did you do it for her to disappear? The female assassin fell silent for a moment, and then she said, Why didn't you die after taking a strike from my sword? Yi Xian looked at her. I'll answer one question, and you answer one of mine. The female assassin nodded. All right. Yi Xian said, a special cultivation technique. The female assassin asked, What cultivation technique? Yi Xian said, That's the second question. The female assassin fell silent. Yi Xian asked, Did you do it for her to disappear? The female assassin shook her head. No. Yi Xian's eyes narrowed slightly. Then who was it? The female assassin said, That's the second question. Yi Xian said in a low voice. Ask. The female assassin asked, You can swallow all swords? Yi Xian nodded. The female assassin asked again, What was that sword technique you executed earlier? Yi Xian said, Boundless sword, an unparalleled martial technique of the 5th dimension. The female assassin fell silent for a moment, and then she said, Don't think about saving her. She's been targeted by those people. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Who? The female assassin fell silent. Yi Xian asked, You can't tell me?
The female assassin fell silent for a long time, and then she said, "I dare not."
Chapter 663. He didn't dare say it. Yi Xian's face darkened. What faction was targeting Little Seven? After a moment of silence, Yi Xian looked at the female assassin. "Why did you come to kill me?" The female assassin didn't answer. She quietly disappeared. Yi Xian sensed the surrounding space and found that she had completely disappeared. Gone. Yi Xian frowned. Who was targeting Little Seven? Also, who sent this female assassin? He had so many questions. At this moment, Shangguan Xian suddenly walked over. Yi Xian looked at Shangguan Xian.
She said softly, "You are now the temporary ruler of the theocracy."
Yi Xian shook his head.
"I'm not suitable."
With that, he turned and left. Ruler of the theocracy? He really wasn't interested. Moreover, the people of the theocracy wouldn't like him to be the divine lord. At this moment, Shangguan Xian stood in front of Yi Xian. She looked straight at Yi Xian.
"Young Master Yi, are you friends with His Majesty?"
Yi Xian nodded.
"Yes." Shangguan Xian said solemnly, "Young Master Yi, if you don't become the divine lord, there will likely be internal strife in the theocracy."
Yi Xian frowned. Internal strife? Shangguan Xian nodded. The theocracy seems very united, but there are some internal conflicts. Previously, with His Majesty suppressing them, no one dared to pick on them. But now that His Majesty is missing, if no one suppresses them, the theocracy will likely fall apart. Moreover, with the enemy before us, if there is no leader, won't the chaos verse be bullied by the people of the Xuanhuan Great World? Yi Xian fell silent. Shangguan Xian said, "His Majesty personally chose you because he believes that you can lead the chaos verse well. Moreover, young Master Yi, your current strength is enough to convince the masses. You are the best candidate." At this point, she looked at Yi Xian. "Your Imperial Majesty, I'm sure you don't want to see your divine kingdom descend into chaos, and you don't want to see our chaos verse be devoured by the Xuanhuang Great World." Yi Xian said softly, "Miss Shangguan, it's not that I'm being unreasonable, it's just that I'm not suitable to be the ruler of divine nations. Moreover, if I become the ruler, there will definitely be many people in your divine nations who won't accept it. I don't want any unpleasant things to happen." Shangguan Xian said solemnly, "There is no one more suitable than you." Yi Xian said, "Your god nation has many talents, and..." Shangguan Xian looked straight at Yi Xian. "His Majesty chose you. You are justified. If someone else were to take the position, there would really be internal strife." Yi Xian was silent. Shangguan Xian continued, "You are His Majesty's friend. Moreover, if you become a divine master, you will definitely continue to search for His Majesty. But if someone else becomes a divine master, that might not be the case." "Friends." Yi Xian was silent for a long time, and then nodded, "Okay." Hearing this, Shangguan Xian relaxed. "Young Master Yi, come with me to the Order City now. I'll give you a proper name now. Before His Majesty returns, you are the divine master of my divine nations and have all the rights." Yi Xian nodded. "Okay." Soon, Yi Xian, Shangguan Xian and the others returned to the Order City. Inside the temple, Yi Xian sat on the seat that Xueqi once sat on. Below him were the experts of divine nations. Many familiar faces. Yi Xian stood up, he glanced at the people in the temple. "I'm a straightforward person, so I won't beat around the bush. Xueqi is missing, and now I am the ruler of divine nations. If you have any objections, you can raise them now." The temple was very quiet. No one spoke. Yi Xian said, "Since you're all silent, then I'll take it that you have no objections. Dismissed." After saying that, he got up and prepared to leave. But at this time, an old man suddenly stood up. He looked straight at Yi Xian. "I don't think you're suitable to be the ruler of my divine nations." Before Yi Xian could speak, Shangguan Xian suddenly said, "He was appointed by His Majesty." The old man shook his head. "My divine nations rule states that the ruler can only be a person of divine nations, and Lord Yi is not a person of my divine nations." Shangguan Xian looked straight at the old man. "He was appointed by His Majesty." The old man looked straight at Shangguan Xian
You're just a counselor beside His Majesty. You have no right to interrupt. Shangguan Xianer was expressionless. Zhang Ge, I respect you very much, but I'll emphasize again, he was appointed by His Majesty, so it's equivalent to His Majesty's decree, do you understand? Zhang Ge sneered. His Majesty appointed?
Isn't that just your one-sided words?
Shangguan Xianer looked at Zhang Ge. It's not that His Majesty won't come back, Zhang Ge. You have to understand what you're doing now.
Hearing this, Zhang Ji's face turned ugly, but he quickly recovered.
He looked at the crowd. Everyone, it's not like there's no one in my divine nations. Why do we need an outsider to be our divine lord? At this time, Yi Xian suddenly looked at Yan Dao not far away. Kill him.
Yan Dao looked at Yi Xian, but did not make a move.
Yi Xian smiled. Look, you said you'd recognize me as your divine lord, but no one in your divine nations obeyed my orders. This divine lord position is too depressing. It's better not to.
With that, he turned and left. But at this time, a cold light suddenly flashed from below. Chi!
Zhang Ji's head flew off. Blood splattered. Everyone was shocked. Yi Xian looked in front of Zhang Gu. There stood a man in black with a blade. A dark guard. The dark guard bowed slightly to Yi Xian. His Majesty has ordered us to obey City Lord Ye's orders. As soon as the voice rang out, 20 people suddenly appeared in the main hall. All of them were dark guards. The moment these 20 people appeared, the atmosphere instantly turned cold. Dark guards. That was the blade in the hands of the divine nation's divine lord.
No one expected that Xueqi would hand this blade to Yi Xian.
In the hall, Yi Xian looked at Shangguan Xian. Gather all the troops of the divine nation. I want them to be loyal to me. At this time, he understood that only the divine nation's troops were loyal to him. Could he control everything in the divine nation, including suppressing these messy forces? Shangguan Xian glanced at Yi Xian, and then she pointed with her finger, causing a sword to fly out. In just a moment, the Paladin Order, Shunwu Army, and Guard Army all appeared. Yi Xian walked over to the soldiers and took out the Godly Lord seal that Xueqi had given him. Xueqi gave this to me before he left. He asked me to temporarily assume the position of divine nation's ruler. And I need your loyalty. Do any of you have any objections? After a moment of silence, everyone knelt on one knee. Greetings, Divine Lord. Divine Lord. The expressions of everyone in the hall instantly fell when they saw this scene. It could be said that the outcome had been decided. Now not only did Yi Xian control the Dark Guards, but he also controlled the Paladin Order, Guard Army, and Shunwu Army. It could be said that Yi Xian controlled around 70% of the divine nation's troops, and anyone who resisted now would undoubtedly be going head-on against Yi Xian. Moreover, Yan Dao, Xiang Qing, and the others were obviously on Yi Xian's side. At this time, Yi Xian walked into the hall and glanced at everyone. Now that our chaotic universe is facing a great enemy, the black-yellow great world, I do not wish for internal strife at this time. Moreover, Xueqi's whereabouts are unknown. Our priority now is to find her and discuss how to resist the black-yellow great world. So if anyone wants to cause internal strife at this time, I will not be lenient. Internal strife. He was very clear about one thing. In front of a great enemy, there must be no internal strife. With that, Yi Xian turned and left. In the hall, everyone looked at each other. At this time the divine image suddenly said, City Lord Yi is right. Our priority now is to find His Majesty and resist the black-yellow great world. Before that, no one is allowed to cause trouble. With that, he turned and left. In the hall, everyone retreated. Yi Xian brought Shangguan Xian to the Celestial Arcanum sect. This was because the Celestial Arcanum sect was the largest intelligence organization in the divine nation. Yi Xian found the Celestial Arcanum sect leader. Any news about Xueqi? The Celestial Arcanum sect leader shook his head. We have used all our strength and also sought help from some mysterious organizations in other universes, but we still have not received any reply. With that he paused. If even we can't find anything, I'm afraid those people won't be able to find anything either. Yi Xian thought about it, then waved his right hand and an image appeared in front of the Celestial Arcanum sect leader. It was a portrait of that female assassin. The Celestial Arcanum sect leader frowned. This is, Yi Xian said,
An assassin, she seems to know something about Dao Yi, you can check her background. The Celestial Arcanum sect leader nodded slightly. I will check it myself. Yi Xian said again, get your men to pay close attention to the movements of the black-yellow great world. The Celestial Arcanum sect leader glanced at Yi Xian and nodded. We will do that. Once there is any movement, we will inform you immediately. Yi Xian nodded, then turned and left with Shangguan Xian, on the way. Yi Xian asked, what's the trump card of the God Nation? Shangguan Xian, went silent. Yi Xian asked, you can't say. Shangguan Xian shook her head. Our trump card now is the Dao Execution Army, and some things left behind by the previous God Lord of the God Nation, like the split soul. Yi Xian asked again, anything else? Shangguan Xian said, there's also a big array, called the Dao Execution Array, which was left behind by God Lord Wu Anning. It's considered one of the trump cards of the God Nation. Yi Xian asked, where is the Dao Execution Army? Shangguan Xian shook her head. You can't command them. Yi Xian looked at Shangguan Xian the latter said solemnly. You can't for now, these people only obey the orders of the God Lord. Although you have the God Nation's God Seal, you haven't accepted His Majesty's inheritance, so you are not considered a true God Lord. Yi Xian went silent. Shangguan Xian said again, don't think too much, this army only listens to the orders of the God Lord, and only the previous God Lords know how to mobilize them. I can contact them, but that's also because His Majesty authorized me before, and His Majesty didn't authorize me to command them, so without His Majesty's special order, I can't mobilize them. Yi Xian asked, how strong are they? Shangguan Xian looked at Yi Xian. Very strong, there are many experts above the God realm. Above the God realm. Yi Xian was about to speak, but at this moment, he suddenly looked up at the starry sky. There, an old man quietly appeared. In the Order City, countless experts looked at this old man. The old man looked around and finally, he directly appeared in front of Yi Xian. He looked at Yi Xian. This old man comes from the black-yellow great world's northern region. I'm here to give you a big fortune. Big fortune. Yi Xian looked at the old man. What fortune? The old man smiled slightly. The king of the northern region wants to adopt you as his son. This is a great fortune for you. Yi Xian. P.S. Today, I, Luan, calculated with my fingers, 10 million monthly votes. You're tuning in to the Xueqi's Martial Arts Saga YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.